Sasha is a traumatized loner who was sold off to a secret organization that made him an overpowered bodyguard. After accepting a mission to protect two baddies from enemies who want their special milk, he starts drinking it to become the strongest and claps anyone that tries to take them away. It all begins one random afternoon as two hotties, Mafuyu and Tomo, walk home from school together. When Mafuyu suddenly starts running toward their dorm, she trips and almost suffocates our blue-eyed MC, who got buried under her massive jugs. Just as Mafuyu recognizes his face from one of the portraits in the school chapel, he tries to drain Tomo's milk bags, so she knocks him out. Later that night, they go to check on him, but his soft face causes Tomo to think he is actually a chick. After Mafuyu tells her that no girl would be obsessed with melons like him, Tomo decides to check for his magnum before they both see that he has already left. Mafuyu immediately heads out with her wood sword to find him, but upon seeing a large pillar of smoke leaking out of the church, she goes down there to protect the paintings. Just as she reaches the podium, a cloaked freak named Pyromania appears and binds her to the wall before asking for the real painting. The sudden attack confuses Mafuyu, but then she sees a bunch of girls hanging off the ceiling and realizes that they are the missing students. Pyromania then uses the wooden sword to massage her melons and burns one of the paintings, causing Mafuyu to break down as she fears that the only memory they have with Tomo's dad will be ruined forever. However, when she suddenly turns her fear into anger, Pyromania decides to attack her for real, but Sasha blocks the attack and uses his alchemy skills to force Pyromania back. He then collapses, so Teresa runs in and pops out one of her melons to feed him Soma, a special milk that amplifies his powers. Upon seeing this, Pyromania tries to blow up the entire church, but Sasha takes them all outside and channels the energy from Teresa's Soma to create a spear before slicing right through Pyromania in an instant. Tomo immediately rushes over to thank him, but he tells her to focus on getting stronger because he won't save her next time. The following day, she gets shocked upon seeing that the church barely has a scratch on it, so she runs in to see Teresa but meets a priest, Yuri, who then tells her to come back because Teresa is still fighting the suspicious effects of Sasha's mouth juices. In class minutes later, the teacher introduces him as the new transfer student, and while all the girls gush over how good he looks, Miyuri decides to get his glizzy at all costs. As soon as the first period ends, Tomo tries to interrogate him, but Miyuri and Hansa swoop in to work their magic and tell her to stick to protecting Tomo. However, after taking one look at the wannabe baddies, Sasha tells them both to get out of his face because he doesn't deal with cheap hoes. As they continue running their mouths, he cuts off the table's leg to embarrass Hansa by unveiling her buns for the entire school to see, but before leaving, he suddenly grabs Tomo's milk bags and says he will be needing it soon. After a dream where Sasha drinks her Soma, Mafuyu wakes up and sees that it's actually Tomo hiding in the sheets. After noticing a fever, she heads down to the chapel to discuss it with a friend named Diana, who then promises to help out whenever she needs it. Minutes later, she finds Sasha on a bench and demands answers from him, but he refuses and only tells her that the fate of the world is connected to his mission. When she accuses him of disregarding regular people just because of his powers, he gets pissed and tells her to stop acting like she knows him. The next moment, he passes out and dreams about his cultured experiences in the past before waking up in Tomo's arms and seeing that they put him in a dress. Upon seeing her perfect melons, he tries to leave, but she pulls him closer to check on his fever without realizing that he is a second away from feasting on her Soma. Just then, Mafuyu walks in with Ayana to offer him food, but he refuses to even taste it until Tomo feeds it to him. After the first spoon, he starts eating like it's his first meal in months, and gives Mafuyu permission to call his nickname afterwards. When Teresa suddenly shows up to get him, Mafuyu asks if she is still feeling the effects of the other night, but Teresa warns her against getting involved and leaves with him. Despite this, Mafuyu continues thinking about what he might be doing with her while soaking up in the bath minutes later. When Tomo notices and asks if she has feelings for him, she immediately denies it and finishes cleaning up before seeing Tomo off to her room so she can rest properly. Just then, Ayana asks for the truth about what has been happening, so Mafuyu explains everything that happened the other night and says she has been trying to figure out why the paintings are such a big deal. All of a sudden, Ayana starts asking for clues on how to find it and claims she is just trying to help before Pyromaniac suddenly shows up and kidnaps her. Mafuyu immediately runs outside to fight, but Pyromania threatens to chop off Ayana's melons if she doesn't tell her how to find the painting. Mafuyu then tries to surrender, but after remembering what Sasha said the other night, she tosses the sword and charges into attack before receiving the shock of her life upon seeing that Pyromaniac is actually Tomo. As she tries to understand what the hell is going on, Sasha returns and immediately jumps off the roof to attack. Mafuyu immediately begs him to stop, but after he lands the strike, she sees that he is actually fighting Ayana, who then reveals that she was controlling Tomo. After revealing her true form, she holds Tomo hostage for information on the painting, so Sasha quickly drinks some of Teresa's Soma to power himself up. Ayana then does the same with Tomo's Soma and realizes that it's the best she has ever had, so she drinks as much as possible to get stronger. However, this causes Sasha to remember his painful past, so he channels all his anger into the scythe and stabs right through her. Back inside moments later, Mafuyu starts freaking out because more psychos will want Tomo's Soma, so Sasha decides to protect her by moving in. When Miyuri hears this in class the next day, she completely loses it, but he continues acting like her existence is meaningless. Later that night, Sasha sneaks into Tomo's room to get a good look at her jugs and ends up losing all control in the process. After Mafuyu rushes in to stop him from drinking the rest of her soma, he claims to have just been doing some research to understand what makes her soma special. The next day, a nightmare wakes him up, so they both rush over to check on him. However, he stops Tomo from cleaning up his sweat and asks if she is okay because losing so much soma should have caused more damage to her body. She then checks if anything happened to her milkers, and after she says that they feel the same, he commends her on being so brave. Mafuyu then asks why he is so obsessed with melons, but he tells her not to worry because nothing will ever make him attracted to her fun-sized milkers. At school a couple hours later, he stuns the entire class with his math skills, and as soon as they head out, Miyuri chases after him and offers to let him stay with her instead of Mafuyu. As usual, he ignores her and tries to focus on his reading, but she continues yapping about all the benefits of living with her until he explains how disgusted he is by her shameless simping. At the pool shortly after that, he tries to finally enjoy his book, but Hansa and Miyuri start teasing Mafuyu for having no friends because Ayana, who was the only person she talked to, suddenly transferred without telling anyone. As they continue blaming her for chasing all her friends away, Sasha tells her to mind her own business and suddenly grabs one of her melons before saying that they will never be as good as Tomo's. At the chapel later that day, he meets up with Teresa and Yuri, who then tells him to watch out because more psychos like Ayana will be gunning for the sacred painting in Tomo. Hours later, the girls show him to his room, and Mafuyu very clearly warns him to always knock before entering the bathroom. But just a few minutes later, he casually walks in on them and takes a moment to stare at their golden globes before turning back. After getting dressed, Mafuyu goes to give him a piece of her mind, but upon seeing that he has already snuck out again, they start to wonder where he could have gone. At the chapel shortly after, he feasts on Teresa's soma, but she notices an unusual level of aggression and almost passes out in the process. Just then, Tomo tries to watch, but Mafuyu holds her down to protect her eyes from such unholy sights. She then tickles her, but as soon as Mafuyu starts laughing, Sasha attacks and almost blows their heads off. Moments later, they apologize for spying, but Mafuyu immediately tries to gaslight him, so he leaves to avoid another yap session. Meanwhile, on a ship close to the country, 3 armed thugs barge into a room where a chick named Kiriya has been living with a casket and push her aside to see what's inside. The next moment, a creature emerges and rips them all to shreds while Kiriya watches with excitement. The following day, Miyuri and Hansa go to welcome a new exchange student, who turns out to be none other than Psycho Kiriya. At the shopping mall later that morning, Miyuri gets excited to buy her a bunch of outfits since they will be living together, while Hansa tries to hide how obsessed she is with Kiriya's beauty. Kiriya notices this and waits for Miyuri to leave before asking Hansa for help with the zip. However, the moment she opens it, Kiriya uses her powers to turn off the power supply and acts like she just passed out to make Hansa think she is vulnerable. Hansa then makes the mistake of kissing her arm, so she immediately summons Anastasia to punish her and promises to let her kiss the good stuff if she admits to being a shameless creep. Without giving it a second thought, Hansa admits to being a weirdo and leans in for the kiss. But Kiriya pulls away and orders Anastasia to pull her up before uncovering her jugs and saying she has to become her love slave. While she starts draining all of Hansa's soma, Sasha gets tired of shopping with the girls and tries to leave, but a mysterious man named Fool suddenly asks if they have seen a missing girl. After failing to recognize her, they ask if he is related, but he claims to just be a good Samaritan before heading off. Sasha then decides to return home, but Tomo asks for one last trip to the Victoria's Secret store because her milk factory has grown again. As soon as they enter, a store attendant takes only Teresa and Tomo to the changing room since Mafuyu's cup size does not exist. Sasha then follows them inside under the guise of being their bodyguard, but Mafuyu knocks him out and drags him out of the store to give them privacy. This ends up being a terrible mistake because as soon as they finish trying on the new plot covers, the attendant turns their lights off with a stun gun. By the time Sasha and Mafuyu get back, she tells them that the girls have already left on their own, but Sasha suddenly realizes that she is the missing girl and notices the smell of electricity before smacking it out of her hand. He then tries to figure out a way into the secret chamber hidden in the dressing room, but by then, Tomo and Teresa have already been captured by a group of creeps planning to film their plot cannons while tickling them. After several minutes of forcing them to react, they decide to take things a step further, but Sasha finally breaks in and knocks them all out. However, after Teresa also drops the leader, Kiriya suddenly shows up to join the fight, so he quickly grabs Teresa to get some of her soma. As soon as he finishes drinking, Kiriya attacks with her copper manipulating abilities, but Sasha blocks it with his iron and reminds her that copper is the weaker element. The next moment, she captures him and decides to give him a live demonstration of copper's importance by drawing out some of the mall's electricity and zapping his entire body. She then pins him to the wall for a final attack, but Mafuyu spots the fire hose and soaks her in water to stop her from shocking him again. Despite this, Kiriya still claims that it would be easy to drop them all until Teresa suddenly tells her to drop the villain act. As she releases Sasha, he gets shocked and asks if she is not one of the 12 adepts, but she promises to see him again soon before leaving with Anastasia. Moments later, Miyuri returns to the dressing room and asks how she got soaked. So she starts playing innocent again and claims it was Sasha that attacked her with water. While Miyuri promises to make him pay, she hugs Hansa and commands her to play along before massaging her buns. Shortly after that, she apologizes to Miyuri for not being able to move in with her and claims her father already made arrangements for an apartment. However, when Hansa gets back home hours later, she sees Kiriya on the couch and tries to chase her out, only to get her brain turned off by a quick squeeze of her melon tip. While Kiriya gives her permission to drink from her water fountain, Fool has just murked the attendant from before and adds her to his card collection. In a dream several days later, Teresa remembers the day she was with an older sister named Wilma and watched in horror as a Quasar named Crow suddenly unveiled her holy plots to have fun with them. Hours later, Yuri calls her to the chapel to inform her of a new mission against one of the adepts. So she heads out without knowing that it's the same Crow who also just got into town. Around the same time, Kiriya has just gotten bored of milking Hansa's so she comes up with an idea and makes her lie to the hot nurse at school about being sick. Despite the clever lie, Aurora realizes that she just wants to skip class, but surprisingly allows it. So Kiriya waits until she leaves before telling Hansa to strip for a fun game of who creams first. Just then, Sasha and the girls have just entered the chapel, but Matthew decides to use the ladies' room and accidentally walks in on Teresa. As soon as she steps out, Sasha shows up to blame her for being careless, and after she apologizes, Matthew scolds him for being so inconsiderate. Shortly after that, she asks about Teresa's past, and Sasha quickly reminds her that she only exists to give him Soma, which is why he has never bothered to know who she really is. Yuri then explains that she lived in an orphanage years ago, until the day a group of savages attacked all the nuns that took her in. While she hid in a cupboard watching the entire thing, Crow showed up and poisoned them with chlorine gas, but Wilma managed to give her one last word of encouragement before taking her last breath. Upon realizing that this must be why she always seems so cold, the girls run out to meet her in the garden, but Tomo suddenly notices the scent of a weird gas. The next moment, Crow captures her and threatens to use his gas if they don't give him the paintings, but Matthew refuses and tries to form a plan with Teresa. Unfortunately, the trauma from her past makes it impossible to move until Crow rips Tomo's shirt to take her Soma, the same way he did to Wilma. This causes Teresa to finally lock in, but as she tries to attack, he grabs her by the neck and decides to poison her first. After Matthew suddenly throws a bag of gardening lime that weakens him, she stands in front of Tomo and Teresa to protect them from the gas. Crow then fires off a heavy cloud of gas to overwhelm them, but it gets deflected, leaving the girls in a state of shock as they wonder how Matthew pulled it off. When Sasha finally shows up and tells Teresa to decide if she wants to be haunted by her past forever, she remembers the last thing Wilma said and runs up to offer him the Soma. With his powers charged to the max, he pulls out the scythe to cut down Crow, but he combines the chlorine gas with water to create a powerful acid that easily melts the scythe. As Sasha slowly gets overwhelmed by the gas, a copper shield suddenly drops on the grass, so Matthew grabs it and charges in to block the gas. Teresa then takes the opportunity to shatter Crow's face with a nasty kick before Sasha slices him in half. While the girls celebrate, Sasha sees Kiriya and realizes that she was behind the shield before Yuri shows up and asks if she can continue helping them. Hours later, Teresa shows up at Matthew and Tomo's dorm and asks if she can move in, so they gladly welcome her since it would make it easier for Sasha to recharge with her Soma. Several days later, Matthew and Tomo engage in what looks like every otaku's dream fantasy, but instead of helping each other arrive, it turns out they are just trying to put on maid costumes for Miyuri. After finding one that fits around Tomo's monster melons, Matthew demands to know why they are being dressed like servants. So Miyuri reminds her of their deal and says they have to work until after the launch of her jewel gallery. Just a couple days before this, Matthew woke up on Tomo's milkers like she always does, but the unusual smell from the kitchen made them extremely hungry. So they quickly got ready and saw that Teresa had prepared a small feast for breakfast. While eating, Matthew couldn't stop thinking about the fact that more creeps would try to attack Tomo soon, so she hurried down to the chapel to ask Yuri if the sacred painting was actually missing. After admitting that he had no idea where it was, he told her not to worry because Sasha would definitely defeat all the adepts, but then she asked if he could really be trusted since all of them are Quasars. Yuri then told her that Sasha classifies as one of the Athos, because unlike adepts like Crow, he doesn't use his powers for evil. Despite this, Matthew still felt the need to do something about their current situation, so she begged Yuri for the key to the villa so she could search for clues about the real painting's location. Yuri refused to even let her see the key and tried to enjoy being begged for once, until Kiriya emotionally blackmailed her into agreeing to hand over the key. However, seeing as it was the perfect opportunity to get revenge, she made her agree to serve as a maid. Back in the store, Sasha has just shown up in his costume as well, but when Miyuri tries taking him to her office for a special job, he pushes back and decides to leave. Thankfully, Tomo convinces him to stay, so Miyuri continues celebrating her revenge while Kiriya teases Sasha for agreeing to cross-dress. When he asks why she even came, she tells him that staying inside was boring, but Tomo learns the real reason when she sees Hansa tied up in the bathroom. Moments later, Miyuri tells him about a priceless egg that should be the main attraction and how they had to stash it away safely because a Russian company recently started threatening to take it by force since her family refused to sell it. All of a sudden, they get surrounded by a mafia group led by the head of the rival company and a retired colonel. After knocking Sasha out, they tie them all up and demand the egg, but Miyuri breaks the bad news and explains how it was carefully moved to her family's vault. Upon hearing this, the colonel gets up to leave, but the company owner decides to have his fun with the girls instead and commands his boys to get to work while he films. While the first one immediately starts massaging Sasha's man buns, a literal behemoth tries to devour Kiriya's plot. And a horrible look on his face causes her to turn cold as she remembers the traumatic experience that made her hate all of humanity. However, when Miyuri steps in and offers to please them with her plot instead, Kiriya struggles to believe what she just heard and wonders if good people actually exist. Miyuri then climbs a stage and strips while the mafia boss and his goons lose their senses to her beauty. Just as she tries to pull off her kitty cover, Kiriya asks to join her, so they cut her ropes and allow her to climb the stage as well. Kiriya then thanks Miyuri for the sacrifice and proceeds to drink her soma in front of everybody. After Miyuri passes out from exhaustion, Hansa throws Anastasia's coffin, and Kiriya easily shreds the entire mafia group in a matter of seconds. The colonel manages to survive and tries to take her out with a special bullet but fails, so he explains his hatred for quasars and says he only came with the others because he is searching for the quasar of sodium. Upon hearing this, Sasha demands to know how he knows Phoenix, so the colonel explains how he blew up his entire unit before blowing himself up along with the entire building. Luckily, Sasha created an iron shield in time to protect everyone, but suddenly becomes filled with rage as he remembers that Phoenix was with the Quasar of Gold when he clapped his precious Alja. Days later, Mafiu remembers the day Tomo's dad told her about a special treasure he had stashed away in the villa before asking Miyuri why she had to tag along. Miyuri then claims that she just wants to experience going on a train, since she usually takes first-class flights to go anywhere. Shortly after the train ride, they start walking through the woods to track down the villa, but Miyuri's constant nagging about the signal eventually wears Mafiu down, so she stops to drink some water. The next moment, Miyuri gets captured by 3 clowns suffering from alopecia, who call themselves the Helium Brothers and demand to know where the sacred painting is. After one of them grabs Miyuri's milk jugs, she stomps his foot and runs behind Mafiu, who then tries to block their attack and almost gets knocked out by it. She immediately tells Miyuri to run away and promises to catch up with her, but after Miyuri takes off, she suddenly slips and rolls down the cliffside before losing consciousness. The brothers then decide to have some fun with her before completing their mission, but the first one suddenly goes up in flames, so the other 2 run back into the woods. Hours later, Mafiu wakes up to the face of a red-eyed Chad, and takes a moment to figure out where she is before attacking him for trying to play with her plots. However, this only causes Lizzie to get a lot more excited about her, until Uturi walks in and tells him to give her some space. After introducing himself and claiming that he found her passed out in the woods, he tells her to get dressed once she feels strong enough and heads out to train Lizzie. By the time Mafiu gets back on her feet, he decides to stop training for the day, so Lizzie takes her to a nearby river for some water and suddenly starts stripping for a bath. When Mafiu refuses to join, he rips off her clothes and promises that she will enjoy the water, until she stops him and says she can't do that with a guy she just met. After pulling off her trunks to show that she is actually a girl as well, Lizzie finally convinces her to play around in the water for the rest of the evening. As a way of showing gratitude, Mafiu then decides to head back to their cabin first and make dinner, but as soon as she leaves, the other 2 Helium brothers walk out to face Lizzie. Unlike Mafiu, she easily blocks all their attacks but realizes that she doesn't have enough juice to go all out. The next moment, Miyuri, who has been searching for a good signal this entire time, walks out, so Lizzie holds the brothers back with shockwaves and asks for Miyuri's permission before drinking soma from her milk factory until she passes out. With her batteries recharged, she summons her sword's true form and slices right through the brothers like butter before getting back home in time for dinner with Mafiu and Uturi. Shortly after that, Mafiu thanks them for everything and heads out, only to meet Tomo and everyone else outside the villa. When Tomo asks why she suddenly left without telling her, she acts nonchalant about it and heads inside to see her dad's secret treasure. However, after seeing that it was just a picture of the both of them from many years ago, she breaks down in Tomo's arms and apologizes for not carrying her along. At school the following week, Utori shows up to class as the new history teacher and immediately steals the hearts of every chick in school. After lectures, he meets up with Mafiu to explain the sudden decision to move, but she also loses her senses to his perfect riz and barely hears a word. Later that night, she prepares a dinner feast to welcome him and Lizzie. But after they show up, Miuri brings Fumika along as well and says it makes no sense for a new teacher to be having a private dinner with his students, while accusing Mafuyu of trying to take his middle-aged meat saber for a spin. She sees Lizzie gobbling down the food and recognizes her from the fight in the woods. Moments later, her excitement turns into fear when Lizzie drags her into the bathroom for a group shower. She also makes the mistake of thinking Lizzie is a guy and fears that she is about to be roughed up until Lizzie pulls off the boy's shorts. Meanwhile, Utori has just said goodnight to Mafuyu, but on the way home, he meets Yuri, who then commends him on coming all this way just for the sacred painting. Later that night, Hansa and the 2 level 1 NPCs in her gang take out a rival gang member that made the mistake of entering their turf. But while the other 2 celebrate it, she obsesses over when her next session with Kiriya is going to be. The next moment, a Quasar named Yu shows up and says he will be her new master before knocking them all out and kidnapping her as Teresa watches. The next morning, he sends Kiriya a video of the cruel torture he has been subjecting Hansa's milkers to, so Kiriya decides to go fight for her precious hope. Meanwhile, Sasha has just found what appears to be a love letter, so he reads it while Mafuyu tells Tomo that there is no way he would actually agree to see whoever wrote it. Hours later, Kiriya finds the warehouse Yu has been using as a hideout and immediately tries to attack him. But he burns off Anastasia's copper shards in an instant, causing Kiriya to realize that he controls oxygen. After cutting off Hansa's air, he tells her not to take another step, but Kiriya decides to go all out and takes control of every copper item in the warehouse before charging in. Despite this, he blocks every attack with a powerful oxygen barrier and unleashes a dangerous blast that destroys Anastasia's body and leaves Kiriya almost unconscious. After he creates a wall of fire to roast her, Hansa runs into it to protect her, so he decides to turn them both into barbecue ribs only to be stopped by an arrow from Teresa. While he gets distracted by her, the girls escape. But then he manages to knock Teresa out and decides to have her send a message to Sasha. By then, Mafuyu and Tomo have just found a bush to spy from, because he actually agreed to see the girl that wrote him a letter. However, instead of asking her out on a date, he threatens to cut her down to size because of the Quasar card she added to the letter. The next moment, Aoi runs into his arms and begs him to defeat her brother Yu. Hours later, he lets her join them for dinner, but after she eats a crumb off his face, Mafuyu loses it and asks how he can easily allow a stranger to come into the house. Upon hearing this, Aoi tries to leave, but he stops her and tells Mafuyu to stop acting like she knows him before giving Aoi permission to spend the night in his room. The next moment, Hansa barges in with Kiriya, so they immediately call Nurse Thick Thighs to treat her. Shortly after that, Sasha returns to the room to get all the details on Aoi's brother and learns that he captured Teresa, while Yuri joins the girls at the dinner table to talk about it. During their conversation, Mafuyu notices some blood on her arm and takes her into the room to get it wrapped up, but then Aoi suddenly asks for the kind of relationship she has with Sasha. As soon as she says there's nothing between them, Yu takes over her body and tries to attack, but Sasha rushes in to block it and chases him out into the woods. At the warehouse moments later, he frees Teresa from the chains Yu used to capture her before Mafuyu and Tomo also show up to revive Aoi with sweet talk. After explaining how becoming a Quasar forced them to merge into one body, Yu unleashes a powerful airball to murk the girls, but Sasha once again blocks it with his sword. However, the power of the attack creates a hole in the ground, and he ends up falling into it with Mafuyu. Meanwhile, Kiriya has just finished drinking soma from Hansa's chesticles and takes off with Anastasia to stop Yu. Shortly after the explosion, Mafuyu wakes up and sees that Sasha is too weak to move, so she decides to feed him soma from her melons, since Teresa is also too weak to give him any. When he finally wakes up, she acts like nothing happened, so he starts combining elements to modify his sword before Aoi shows up to finish their fight, instead of the usual airballs. He manipulates oxygen to rust the iron in Sasha's sword, but after the first coat gets shattered, he gets shocked to see that the sword is still in one piece, so Sasha explains how he created stainless steel. He then decides to fulfill his promise to Aoi by unaliving him, but Mafuyu steps in and tells Aoi to forgive herself for everything you did with her body. As soon as he grabs her, Kiriya stabs through his insides to weaken him, and Sasha quickly delivers the final blow but regrets it soon after, so Mafuyu comforts him. A couple nights later, Fumika tries to take a piss at a public restroom but suddenly gets ambushed by a psychotic creep who keeps demanding to know where the light of the mountain is. At school the following day, Miuri tells the girls how Fumika barely escaped and decides to do everything in her power to make sure creeps like that pay for their crimes against girls. To start, she forces them to agree to a late-night patrol through the woods to find him, so after returning to the dorm that evening, Mafuyu decides to take Sasha and Teresa along with her. When Tomo tries to tag along, Mafuyu reminds her of the fever she usually gets whenever they go on dangerous missions and tells her to watch the house instead. Around the same time, Lidzia has just grabbed her sword for a late-night training session, so Utori wishes her luck but says she might run into a Quasar because he can sense someone powerful living close to them. Shortly after that, Tomo gets frustrated about being left behind and decides to channel her energy into making dinner so Mafuyu will stop thinking she is useless. Moments later, the creep from last night finds the dorm, but upon seeing smoke coming out of the building, he rushes inside and puts it out with his coat before calling Tomo stupid for trying to pour water on a gas fire. Instead of assaulting her, Joshua then proceeds to help her make dinner and trauma dumps on her, while whipping up the best egg rice she has ever tasted. However, while talking about his painful past and how he has to take care of his sister, he remembers the mission and demands to know where the light of the mountain is, since it sounds similar to Tomo's name. She foolishly tells him that she is what he has been searching for, so he tells her to humbly accept her new life as his slave. By then, Sasha has just noticed the aura of another Quasar in the woods, so he makes Teresa pop out her jug so he can drink Soma before they all run deeper into the woods to see who it is. After several minutes of searching, he sees a ball of lightning heading in their direction and blocks it. But after unleashing another deadly blast of energy, Lizzie vanishes into the night because Utori forbade her from fighting. Back in the kitchen, Joshua has completely lost it over how slow Tomo is, because he spent the last few minutes threatening to drain her milkers. But she continues acting like it's no big deal. After he hands her an apron to cover up, she tells him to stop trying to be a bad guy, because she can tell he just wants to build a good life for his sister. Despite feeling bad about not completing his mission, he decides to listen and offers to help her make dinner for everyone else. But when she leans over to get something from the fridge, her cakes make him delirious, so he decides to grab a quick bite. Just then, Mafiu returns with the others, so he dashes out from the window and Tomo immediately begs Sasha to spare him, since he never actually did anything. At the start of the following week, a smoking hot officer gets stopped by twin hotties named Ivuk and Ivor, who then ask for directions to Sasha's academy. After she explains the path they have to take, they suddenly ask to be punished and whip out a bunch of torture devices before saying that they can handle anything, leak every normal person. The hot officer refuses and asks if they are okay in the head, but they get upset by her refusal and send her up to the Lord as punishment. In school later that morning, Hansa trips Mafiu on her way into class and starts insulting her with Miyuri, so Fumika tries to defend her, only to get teased for having a sensitive bladder. After Sasha tells them to start acting grown, Miyuri and Hansa stop the roast session, so Fumika heads out with Mafiu and thinks back to the first day she saw him in class. While everyone else became scared of him, she silently stalked him until the day he saved a cat and realized that he was the prince she had always dreamed of clapping. Shortly after her trip to Fantasyland, she dumps some old sheets in the dumpster before the twins show up and ask for directions to Sasha's class. She then offers to take them there and asks if they can wait for her to take a piss, but they suddenly drop to their knees and ask for her golden shower. As soon as she refuses, they prepare to punish her like the officer, but Sasha shows up with Teresa, so they beg him to punish them instead. After a sudden and intense makeout session, they release Mercury and try to chop Fumika into bite-sized pieces, but Sasha blocks it and shoots iron spears into their bodies before telling Fumika to run back to class. Instead of screaming in pain, the twins beg him for more and offer to let him use their torture devices so they can feel maximum happiness. This leaves him at a loss for words, so they take the opportunity to strike, but Korea blocks it and tells him that they are duplicates sent to distract him from the real problem. By then, Fumika has just returned to class and finds everyone terrified of a chick named Eva Silver, who clapped their teacher to take over the class. When she calls Mafiu out to ask a couple questions, Miyuri interrupts and says that all questions need to go through her first, so Eva decides to stop playing nice and slams her into the wall before trapping the entire class with her Mercury controlling ability. While Korea stays back to fight off the twins, Sasha and Teresa try to save everyone in class, but they get trapped by walls of Mercury molecules powerful enough to burn through bone in an instant. Back in class, Eva has just placed Fumika on the table and tells everyone to watch carefully as she rips off her plot cover and drains her soma. After Fumika's bladder floods the table, Eva tries to show everyone the water fountain, but Mafiu rushes forward to stop her and grabs Fumika. However, Fumika suddenly decides to stop being the weakling for once and pulls out the blade Sasha used to save the cat before charging straight for Eva, managing to cut her face. This causes Eva to lose it, so she fires off a spiraling web of mercury to rip Fumika to shreds. But Sasha rushes in at the last moment to block it and commends the girls for holding out against her. While Mafiu rushes over to cover Fumika, Sasha gets pissed at Eva for turning the twins into her mindless toys and decides to make sure she can never do it to anyone else. After she powers up and claims to be much stronger than him, he grabs Fumika and drinks her soma to unlock a new level of strength, which he then uses to freeze Eva's mercury. Upon realizing that she will be defenseless against his attacks, she tries to escape. But Teresa corners her in the hallways with arrows. Sasha then pushes her out through the window and throws the scythe right through her body before burning it until she becomes a pool of liquid. By evening, a bunch of federal agents show up and make up a story about how Sasha is actually a member of the Russian Special Forces to hide what is really going on from the regular students. However, after he walks into class the next day, they all surround him and start asking a bunch of questions, until Hansa reminds them that he is probably the one attracting all the bad guys, as they all start to reconsider being his fans. Fumika stands up to Hansa and refuses to accept tolerate her disrespect any longer before joining the rest of the class to ask Sasha questions about his life as a special agent. A couple hours after school, Matthew finishes grocery shopping and decides to make his favorite for dinner since he hasn't had it in a while, but she suddenly gets attacked by a mysterious quasar. Shortly after that, Sasha and Tomo get tired of waiting for her and try to distract themselves with a random conversation, but then Teresa rushes in wearing Mafiu's clothes and says she has been kidnapped. Using the directions left on a card with her clothes, they locate an abandoned warehouse and find Mafiu strapped to a mercury tree by Eva and one of the twins. Teresa immediately tries to attack, but Eva threatens to chop off Mafiu's head if they move a muscle, so they remain still until she wraps them up in mercury webs and cuts into every major blood vessel. Just then, Kariya shows up and wonders how one of the twins survived, since she murked them both. So Eva explains that they are all actually clones created with her DNA. She further reveals that she uses their parts to keep herself alive and young, which is how she survived Sasha's flames. But Kariya gets tired of listening and launches an attack. The clone then decides to stab Mafiu, but she suddenly gets lit on fire and melts away before Kariya frees Mafiu. While Kariya continues holding Eva back, Mafiu rushes over to Sasha and feeds him soma until he regains enough strength to get back on his feet. Unlike the usual burst of energy he receives from drinking regular soma, he suddenly gains the ability to manipulate the iron in blood and creates a blood sword, which easily slices through Eva's enhanced mercury. As soon as Kariya captures her, she tries to negotiate, but Sasha leaps into the air and slices right through her before passing out from exhaustion and blood loss. At a hot springs several days later, the girls all take turns playing with each other's melons like every other day, but unlike the usual degeneracy we are all used to at this point, things take a turn when Sasha starts begging to leave because he doesn't feel safe around so many cultured weirdos. Apparently, the blood loss after his fight with Eva gave him amnesia, and Kariya used that as an opportunity to make him believe that he is actually a girl who got turned into a guy by an evil witch. While Aurora continues fighting to pull off his towel, Mafiu and the others wonder if they did the right thing by letting Kariya's lies play out for so long. At the dining hall later that night, Mafiu and Tomo explain how they intentionally chose iron-rich meals to see if it would help him return to normal. But Hansa suddenly gets pissed and says copper is also an important element before ripping off her melon wraps. The corny display almost causes Kariya to run away in embarrassment, but she controls herself and promises to punish her after dinner. As they all continue eating, Sasha still remains concerned about his current state, so Fumika assures him that everything will be okay. However, when he suddenly asks if she was also cursed since her melons look the same as his, she becomes traumatized and hides in a corner while Mafiu scolds him for being inconsiderate. As soon as they finish eating, Kariya takes Hansa to a secret room for the punishment she promised, but just as she gets to the good stuff, a plot-heavy giant named Nikuma shows up and orders them all to return to the bath. Once they all get back into the water, she properly introduces herself and explains her goal to cure Sasha's amnesia before conducting a physical examination on their melons to make sure they have enough soma. After sending Fumika away because of her empty assets, she makes them all surround Sasha so he can take a sip from all of them and hopefully gain enough energy to remember who he really is. Unfortunately, the plan falls apart when he becomes overwhelmed by their milkers and accidentally manipulates all the nearby iron to flood the entire inn. Weeks later, he gets ambushed by a group of creeps on his way home from school and begs them to let him go, but they refuse until Miyuri shows up in a superhero suit that looks like a bunch of hand-me-downs strapped together. For some reason, Sasha fails to recognize her through the useless disguise and watches as she orders the thugs to stop, but they decide to play with her instead. So the first guy grabs a melon to see how good they feel. After yeeting him into space, she then fires off plasma beams from both melons and wishes Sasha luck before taking off. At the dorm later that night, Mafiu and Tomo notice that he no longer fears melons and think he might finally get better, until Teresa shows up and says that it's probably because of Miyuri, who has now become a famous hero known as Lilikamen. The following afternoon, she saves the day as usual, but while changing out of her pathetic disguise moments later, she receives a surprise visit from Hansa, who is also dressed like the cat girl from that hub video you gooned to last night. Despite having two perfectly functioning eyes, she fails to see that it's actually Hansa and falls for her lies when she claims to also be a superhero who has been looking for a partner. After Miyuri agrees to fight for justice with her, Hansa claims that she needs extra training and summons none other than Kariya, who is also dressed worse than a maid from Hooters. Just a few days before this, Kariya was forcing Hansa to search for a certain item in the woods when Yuri showed up to tell her that a powerful element used by them had gone missing. This was the element powering Anastasia and Sasha's earring, so Kariya knew how important it was and said she had actually been searching for it all day, but he told her to focus on retrieving it because they had already found it in Yuri's arm. Upon realizing that she can't exactly yank it out, Kariya decides to drain it out by forcing Miyuri to endure endless torture disguised as superhero training. After she finally gets strong enough to replace DC Wonder Woman, Sasha tracks her down and begs to become her sidekick, only to be defeated by a robot army days later. While Tomo and Mafiu shed tears for him, Hansa returns to see Miyuri again, but this time, she challenges her to a duel to decide who is the true heroine. At first, Miyuri refuses, but after a series of nasty body shots, she decides to grant Hansa's wish and ends up defeating her just a few hours later. However, Hansa suddenly reveals that she did it all to make sure she was ready to face the final boss, who turns out to be none other than Master Kiriya. The moment Miyuri arrives at her throne room, Kiriya sees that the element insignia is already wearing off and drops the costume to explain that they were just putting on an act to get it out. But Miyuri forgets the difference between reality and delusion and blasts her into the upper atmosphere. The next moment, she loses consciousness from exhaustion and eventually wakes up strapped to an altar by a strange Chad named Tasuku. Without so much as a warning, he paints her plot cannons with a mysterious liquid and waits until the element insignia fades away before admitting that he just tied her up for his pleasure. Just as he tries to feast on her cakes, Hansa shows up to stop him, but a chick named Matsumi suddenly knocks him out and spends a couple of minutes damaging his body before dragging him out. Several nights later, Sasha's amnesia gets even worse as he settles into his new identity as a chick trapped in a guy's body and makes the girls read him bedtime stories, with their jugs as his pillow. After reading countless books to him, Mafuyu and Tomo finally escape his room and call Yuri to the dorm to ask if there is a cure to his condition. But Yuri claims that the only option is to keep a close eye on him since he is the first Quasar to ever experience this. Later that night, he experiences a dream that reminds him of the day Olia got murked and sneaks out of the house to stroll through the city. Meanwhile, Lizzie tries to offer Utori some tea, but he refuses and tells her to leave, causing her to feel bad about living with him for the first time. Shortly after that, the excessive staring from creepy bystanders causes Sasha to feel stressed, so he tries to run back but ends up slamming into a cosplayer named Mono, who immediately falls in love with his looks. As she starts begging him to follow her and tries to drag him away, Lizzie attacks her and takes him up in her arms to make sure he is okay. But seeing two innocent-looking beauties causes Mono to lose her touch with reality. So she starts begging them to at least listen to her proposal until they reluctantly agree. Just a couple minutes after that, they both end up at a cosplay event and become instant celebrities as everyone in the audience gushes over how good they look. Meanwhile, Mafuyu, Tomo, and Teresa scour the streets searching for him and eventually split up to cover more ground. Hours later, Sasha and the girls find a bar to relax after the show, but after talking about how being a cosplayer helped her learn the true meaning of freedom, Mono asks if they are ready to become proper adults. By then, Tomo and Teresa, who have just entered an empty alley, decide to look deeper in case he passed out by a dumpster, only to get ambushed by a mysterious guy in a cloak. Meanwhile, Mono has already started revealing her plot cannons to Sasha and Lizzie in a hotel room, but just as they try to get busy, a flurry of lead bullets blast through the window and almost send them up to the Lord. After using the bed as a shield, Lizzie realizes that they are being attacked by the Quasar of Lead and begs Mono for permission before drinking Soma from her jugs. She then makes Sasha promise to keep whatever happens to himself before pulling out her sword. As she struggles to block the bullets, Sasha slowly regains his memories until one of the bullets reopens his scar. The next moment, he steps in to protect Lizzie and freaks out over the cosplay outfit before absorbing most of the lead Quasar's bullets and firing it right back at him. After manipulating all the iron around him to stab through the Quasar's spine, he turns to fight Lizzie since she is also a Quasar, but Mafuyu shows up just in time to stop them both. While she struggles to talk them out of it, the lead Quasar drags himself to the edge to deliver one final shot, but Utori lights him up before telling them that he has captured Tomo and Teresa. Shortly after that, Lizzie returns to see him and asks why he is attacking the only people she has been able to make friends with, but Utori tells her to stop asking questions and focus on taking Teresa's Soma. Lizzie then remembers how he burned down her entire village and decided to raise her because she was brave enough to stand up to him. While she drains Teresa of all the Soma in her jugs, Sasha and Mafuyu interrogate Yuri because he always knew Utori was the sodium Quasar and kept quiet about it. After Yuri explains that they were keeping a close eye on his every move to form a foolproof plan, Kiriya tells Sasha to forget about fighting him because he is among the strongest Quasars to ever exist. Upon hearing this, he runs into his room to think, and Mafuyu follows to make sure he is okay, so he decides to explain where his hatred comes from. Years ago, his parents sold him off for money, and he ended up in an Athos research facility used to perform experiments on other abandoned people with the hopes of creating the new generation of Quasars. Throughout those dark days, the only ray of hope he had was Olja, an attendant that cared for him and always made him feel better with her massive jugs. However, his already miserable life took a horrific turn on the day the gold Quasar unalived her, while Utori and another Quasar watched. Seeing her blood all over the floor triggered the first activation of his powers, but Utori took over his body by manipulating sodium and kept him frozen long enough for the gold Quasar to carve in his scars. After listening to all this, Mafuyu tries to talk him out of doing something rash, but he runs out to save Tomo, so she stops in at the door and says she has to come along for the extra support. He then tells her that a wooden sword will do absolutely nothing against Utori, but she still insists on going with him until he pulls off his gloves to show her the scars he got from trying to find Olja's body in the snow. This causes her to accept the truth of how dangerous the fight will be, but instead of going back inside, she offers to support him by popping out her jugs. Since Teresa has become Utori's puppet, he decides to drink her soma instead and takes every last drop before they start heading to Utori's place. Just then, he senses Sasha's aura approaching and sends Lizzie off to fight him before Fool shows up and summons the duplicates of every member of the Adepts. Sasha has already defeated. After promising to make Utori pay for betraying them, he sends the puppets to attack, but Utori easily defeats them and asks for a stronger opponent. Meanwhile, Sasha has just backed Lizzie into a corner, leaving her confused, as she never expected him to get so strong in such a small amount of time. As he tries to finish her off, Teresa steps in to stop him, but he decides to cut her down as well, even if she is not the one in control. Back in Utori's mansion, Mafuyu has just walked in, and when she asks why he is going this far to betray her, he explains that there is a certain power in Tomo powerful enough to threaten all of humanity's existence. As soon as he says that the only option is to unalive her, she gets up and starts talking with a weird accent, so Mafuyu tries to figure out what is wrong. Fool then calls her stupid for being disrespectful, and says Tomo's body just got possessed by the gold quasar before trying to kiss her feet. After kicking him away and calling him stupid for thinking a worthless dog like him is worthy of touching her, she retrieves the gold gauntlet and drinks straight from her own jugs. When Mafuyu tries to stop her, Utori holds her back and explains how powerful the gold quasar is, but he suddenly lets Tomo regain consciousness, so Mafuyu runs up to grab her. However, the gold quasar uses that opportunity to capture her as well and reveals his plan to make them both serve him before telling Utori to forget about ever stopping him. After admitting that he planned to trap his soul forever by unaliving Tomo, he claims that it's still possible, but the gold quasar and Fool explain how they have been prepping Sasha to become the ultimate sacrifice by sending all those evil quasars against him. They further explain that clapping Lizzie and Teresa will unlock the final level of his power needed to make him the perfect sacrifice. But their prediction fails because Sasha manages to stop himself from murking Teresa. After he carries her in his arms and apologizes for being too weak to do what was necessary, she tells him to focus on saving the girls instead, so he decides to go face Utori. Just then, the gold quasar senses him coming and lets Tomo regain consciousness so she can watch the fight. While she quickly tries to free Mafuyu, Sasha walks in and immediately starts attacking Utori, but he easily dodges everything before cutting him with a deadly sodium web. Sasha still retains enough energy to fight back, but Utori continues to overpower him while explaining that he has to tap into his true source of strength to win. After slamming him into a wall, Utori reminds him that he only ever felt powerful when he was trying to protect someone he cared about. But Sasha still struggles to understand until he sees Mafuyu's wooden sword. Utori then decides to give him one last test by attempting to blow him up. But this time, Sasha blocks it and unlocks a dangerous new level that gives him the ability to create a sword out of blood. Upon seeing this, Utori charges up and unleashes his most powerful flaming phoenix to finish him off, but he slices right through it before delivering a fatal slice that drops Utori to his knees. Just then, Lizzie enters and tries to attack Sasha, so Utori holds her back and uses the last ounce of strength he has left to apologize for bringing her into such a dangerous life. After he collapses, Lizzie desperately tries to wake him, but Sasha sees the roof about to cave in and pulls her away before it crashes on top of him. When the gold quasar suddenly regains control of Mafuyu's body and starts laughing, Sasha sees the gauntlet and remembers Olga's death before asking if it's really him. He then tells Sasha not to bother thinking of revenge because he is still too weak to save his girls. But as he tries to obtain the sacred sword hidden in a golden egg, Korea starts pumping rounds of copper bullets into the building to stop him. Sasha then takes that as an opportunity to attack, and after he gets blasted away, Lizzie quickly charges in to free Mafuyu. However, instead of running away, she grabs Tomo and begs her to come back until the gold quasar loses control of her consciousness. Fool notices this and fears that they might be able to stop the gold quasar, so he creates a portal with one of his cards and drags Tomo into it. The following night, Mafuyu serves dinner to Sasha and Yuri before talking about how Tomo would always help her out in the kitchen. After Yuri reminds them that the gold quasar will continue to reside in her body even if they manage to get her back, Sasha promises to save her no matter what, causing Mafuyu to feel a little optimistic. In class the following day, a new teacher named Tanner introduces the class to the latest transfer students, Matsumi and Tasuku. But while everyone else gushes over how good they look, Sasha becomes suspicious because he has history with Matsumi. Hours later, he finally finds her outside and demands to know why she suddenly came back. But she avoids his questions and grabs his arm to remind him how her jugs used to feel. Just then, Mafuyu shows up and gets curious about who she is, so Tasuku explains that her milkers are the first she ever drank from as a quasar. Sasha immediately tries to brush it off like it means nothing, but then Tasuku suddenly asks Mafuyu if he can also drink her soma. The shameless request catches her off guard, so she tries to find a respectful way to decline until Matsumi sends him flying with a nasty uppercut and apologizes for not getting him under control. The next moment, the student council president, Yumei, shows up with a lacrosse stick and shatters his baby maker as punishment before explaining the rules against creepy behavior. After she tells Matsumi to keep her dog on a leash and leaves, Tanner tries to joke about it, but Sasha immediately tells him to stick to being a worthless NPC. Mafiu then tells him to be respectful since he is their new teacher, but Tanner acts like he has no problem with it. While Sasha tries to figure out why Mutsumi suddenly joined the academy, Yumihi has just entered the ladies' room for a quick shower, but a pair of hands suddenly phase through the wall and grab her. Moments later, Sasha sees her running out and rushes to help before one of the hands appears through her belly. Upon seeing this, he realizes that someone just got hold of an elemental circuit and quickly blocks all their attacks before creating a sword out of the fence to fight. After dodging most of the attacks, he takes a moment to focus on the hand's energy waves and manages to land a severely damaging hit. The moment he hears someone screaming, he rushes up to the roof and sees that it was just a normal person who got their hands on the elemental circuit. However, when Tasuku suddenly comes out and commends him on figuring it out, Sasha asks if he was behind it, but he suggests skipping the small talk so they can figure out who is the better controller of iron. Meanwhile, Mutsumi has just entered the infirmary to tell Nurse Milkbags about Yumi's attack, so she tells Mafiu to save their conversation for later and rushes out. Mafiu also tries to figure out what happened, but Mutsumi distracts her by talking about Sasha before suddenly knocking her out. Minutes later, she wakes up tied to one of the beds and asks to be set free, but then Mutsumi says that she has a thing for girls like her and proceeds to indulge in unholy activities until Mafiu calls for Sasha and releases a power blast of energy that reaches him on the roof. He then tries to go see why she called, but Tasuku gets serious and reminds him that they have a fight to finish. Around the same time, Tomo wakes up in a research facility and sees a scientist named Jita, who then proceeds to conduct some freak investigation on her plot until her soma reacts with the lab equipment. After almost blowing up the entire floor, Tomo passes out again, so Jita tries to resume the tests, only to be stopped by Gregory, the gold quasar who possessed Tomo's body. He then warns her against using Tomo's body for anything unholy and asks for some space before taking a nap. Back at the academy, Sasha has just heated up all of Tasuku's pipes and finally takes him down because unlike the regular iron quasars, Tasuku can only control them through magnetism. After commending him on being able to figure it out, Tasuku explains that he and Mutsumi are actually working together to protect Japan from threats related to quasars. He further explains that they took interest in him because he is connected to a powerful sword called the Sword of Maria. But Sasha gets tired of his blabbing and runs off to help Mafiu. Upon getting to the room, he sees the circuit of the Sword of Maria on her arm and immediately tells Mutsumi to get out. But she warns him to keep a close eye on her because powerful enemies will definitely become interested in her powers. Later that night, Tomo wakes up to Jita conducting more experiments on her jugs, but this time, Joshua suddenly walks in and chases her away before apologizing for not coming to watch over her sooner. After remembering who he is, she asks if he can help her leave, but he refuses and tells her not to worry about anything because no one will even think of harming her as long as Gregory's soul is in her body. In a dream the following day, she reunites with Mafiu but gets a freaky welcome gift before waking up and seeing that it's actually a dog playing with her. Just then, a girl named Asta runs inside to catch the dog, but it escapes and causes her to trip in the process. After Tomo introduces herself and offers to help her find it, they spend most of the morning walking around the estate and end up sharing a lot about themselves. Somewhere along the line, Asta reveals her dream of traveling to somewhere new because she has spent all her life in the estate, so Tomo offers to give her a tour of Japan with Mafiu but says it would be impossible since there is no way to escape from the estate. Asta then suddenly remembers a way to leave and takes her up to the highest watchtower to show her a spot on the beach where boats usually dock. While trying to point it out, she slips, so Tomo quickly pulls her back inside and promises to help her achieve her dreams no matter what. This causes Asta to get excited, so she hugs Tomo, but the weight of their bodies causes the wall behind Tomo to break off. Thankfully, a man named Dukin saves them, but a couple minutes later, he summons Jita to ask why Joshua was not watching over her. When she tries to explain, another guy named George tells Dukin not to bother asking questions because their entire family is worthless. This causes Jita to get pissed off, so she challenges him to a fight and somehow manages to knock him down with a single attack, which surprises all of them since Jita has always been the weakest. After they all realize that it must be because she drank some of Tomo's soma, a powerful quasar named Wong jumps in and decides to punish Jita for starting a fight, but Joshua quickly runs out to defend her. Wong easily blasts him away to resume Jita's punishment, but when Tomo steps in, he stops and asks her to kindly step aside since they can't cause any harm to her body. However, she refuses to move a muscle, so Asta tells them all to stand down, and they immediately obey, which surprises Tomo until they explain that she is the most powerful soma-producing maiden. Days later, Mafiu sees Sasha in the computer room working on leads and asks if she can help with the power of the circuit, but he tells her not to even think about it because she is way too inexperienced. She then tells him to at least get some rest because he has been working endlessly for the last few days, but he claims to be perfectly okay with just a couple minutes of sleep. The next moment, he passes out from exhaustion, so she covers him up before leaving to find more of Utori's research. Meanwhile, Urara has just stepped into the shower at her place and decides that it's finally time to reveal who she really is to Sasha. In class the next morning, Miyuri announces Kiria's birthday to everyone and invites them to a party she is throwing to celebrate it. While she personally walks over to Matthew to hand over an invitation card, Sasha shows up and completely ignores Tanner, as usual, before heading straight to Urara's office and demanding to know how she summoned him with the top-secret Quasar stamp. She then tries to explain her connection to Tomo's dad and Utori, but he suddenly grabs a melon and asks if she works with the Gold Quasar. To prove that she is one of the good guys, she lets him drink her soma. And after taking a moment to put herself back together, she shows him a special book from Tomo's dad and explains how they all worked together in secret before his sudden disappearance months ago. Hours later, Hansa helps Kiria get dressed for her party before she goes out and struggles to believe her eyes upon seeing that almost everyone at school showed up to celebrate her day. After her classmates present her with a crown, Miyuri calls everyone together for a toast, but a wild beast suddenly crashes the party. While Matthew helps all the civilians evacuate, Miyuri watches the beast closely to figure out what it wants, but soon regrets this when it grabs her and forcefully drinks her soma. However, after taking a closer look, she realizes that it is actually Lizzie and gets tossed aside like a rag doll before Kiria decides to attack. She quickly takes soma from Hansa and sends Anastasia against Lizzie, but she easily knocks down the cultured android and nearly shatters Kiria's arm as well. When Anastasia tries to attack again, Lizzie rips her to shreds and creates a huge crack in the ground to separate Kiria from Hansa. She then tries to send Kiria to the other side, but Sasha stops the attack and asks Kiria when she became so weak. After dropping Lizzie and forcing her to turn back, he walks over to Kiria to tell her that the birthday crown suits her, but she gets pissed and starts heading home, only to meet Tanner waiting by the pool. She initially tries to ignore him until he claims to be the one responsible for Lizzie's transformation and reintroduces himself as a famous terrorist known as the Crestmaker Priest. He then offers to make her a true queen right before Gregory shows up to welcome her to their ranks. Later that night, Hansa tries to make her feel better with a special cosplay outfit, but Kiria completely ignores her and heads to bed. Meanwhile, Sasha and Matthew have just found a secret bookshelf with the help of the book Urara gave them, and while looking through the documents in it, they find a picture showing that a lake close to the academy is the key to everything. A couple hours later, Jita and the other Quasars on Gregory's team complete an intense soma drinking ritual before he regains control of Tomo's body to give them instructions. The next day, Sasha takes Matthew out to the center of the lake with him and tells her to wait before diving in to find answers. Meanwhile, Wong has just met up with Tanner and George to discuss the terms of their temporary alignment, but the brothers continue asking for the others, so he tells them not to worry because they will all be around in time to complete the mission. At the time, Jita has just led a girl named Milk into the city and worries that all the attention they are receiving might make her insecure. But she barely notices and runs into a pastry shop, so Jita follows while Mutsumi and Tashuku keep a close eye on them. Shortly after that, Mafiu ends up in a dream where a clone uses tentacles to grab her plots, but after minutes of struggling to get free, she wakes up on the boat and sees Sasha staring while she aggressively holds on to her own jugs. Later that day, she makes in some tea and heads out to get groceries, but after seeing Hansa on a random swing, she stops by to figure out what happened. Hansa then explains how Kiria suddenly left the apartment without so much as a warning and proceeds to reveal her suspicious cosplay outfit, so Matthew can tell her why Kiria casually ignored it, but Matthew suddenly spots Tomo and takes off running. After managing to stop her in the woods, she tries to ask how she got free, but then Tanner turns off the disguise and uses his teleportation skills to kidnap her. By then, Tasuku and Mutsumi have just stopped Jita and Milk at a construction site and promise to beat them until they return to wherever they came from, after also roasting them for having no sign of ripe melons on their chest. Tashuku tries using all the iron in the site to his advantage, but still ends up with bruises all over his body because of Jita's ability to manipulate diamonds. Sensing the strength difference, he tells Mutsumi to focus on Milk since she looks like an easier target. But that also turns out to be a mistake as Milk easily blows her up in an instant. Later on, they end up at Urara's office, and while she treats them, Yuri meets up with Sasha to explain all the conditions that have to be met before the secret sanctuary at the lake appears. Just as they realize that the full moon happening in a few hours is the last piece of the puzzle, Hansa shows up to tell them about Mafiu's kidnapping. Hours later, she wakes up inside a rock and asks to be set free. But Tanner and the others tell her to forget about begging because the circuit on her arm is an important part of the ritual. Just then, Sasha shows up to save her, but when he tries to attack, Kiria reveals herself and threatens to cut Matthew into countless pieces if he takes another step. Upon seeing this, Mafiu asks how she could betray them so easily, and after she claims it's finally time to get a real crown, the full moon appears and activates the circuit on Mafiu's arm. After the sanctuary appears, Mafu's jugs swell until her plot cover gets ripped apart, so Kariya forces Sasha to watch as she takes the first drink, while she becomes intoxicated by the level of power in Mafu's soma. Every other soma-producing chick they have encountered notices a rapid decline in the jugs and realizes that the elemental circuit is pooling soma from all over the world to make Mafu the ultimate power bank for quasars. The next moment, all the water in the lake forms a powerful shield around the sanctuary, so Tanner creates a portal and leaves with Kariya and Mafu to get closer, while Jita and Milk stay back to stop Sasha. As he prepares to take them on, Mutsumi and Tashiku show up to help out, so he runs off only to get stopped again by Wong. He immediately tries to attack, but Wong counters with her ability to manipulate glass and lands several cuts across Sasha's body. Luckily, Lizzie also shows up to help, so he runs off to catch up with Tanner, who just realized that they can't just waltz through the water barrier. When Sasha finally catches up to them, both brothers combine their abilities to stop him, but he refuses to back down, so Tanner draws a portal on Mafu to draw out her soma like an overflowing water fountain. After they both drink as much of it as possible, Tanner drops to his knees and starts licking Kariya's hand until Hansa kicks him away and slaps her for tolerating such pathetic slobbering. When Tanner gets back up and tells Kariya to unalive her for the disrespectful slap, she easily accepts his suggestion, causing Hansa to nearly piss herself. However, Kariya attacks Tanner instead and claims she was never going to actually join them before telling Hansa to prepare herself for another culture punishment. The next moment, George fires off a lightning beam to Kariya, but Hansa jumps in to protect her and immediately offers her soma. After giving her a kiss instead, Kariya prepares to take on both brothers, but they suddenly get overwhelmed by their own powers, so Kariya explains how drinking powerful soma is not a good idea for weaklings like them. While they both start morphing into a hideous behemoth, Wong tells Jita and Milk to stand down because it's all part of Gregory's plan. Sasha, on the other hand, rushes over with the others to help Mafu, but then he starts doubting himself until Teresa shows up and reminds him of his promise to protect her. After he regains his confidence, Kariya asks if there is an actual plan, so Teresa tells them all to use the Forbidden Trinity skill before offering Sasha her mana. Tashiku then starts off the attack by holding the brothers together, while Kariya and Lizzie combine their powers to create a giant gun barrel with Sasha as the bullet. With his abilities boosted to the max, he explodes straight through the brothers in one shot and saves Mafu from the effect of Tanner's crest. But while hugging her, his blood drops on the elemental circuit, causing the water barrier to fall apart. Just then, Gregory appears and decides to reward Sasha by giving him Olga's body. After creating a barrier to separate them from the outside world, he takes Olga's body up into the sanctuary, and Sasha immediately jumps in after him, only to have his heart crushed when Gregory shatters her body along with the glass casket. The next moment, he goes insane with rage and summons the blood sword, but that only makes Gregory even more excited because it was part of his plan to summon the sacred painting they have all been searching for. As it transforms into a portal with demonic tentacles spiraling out, Gregory invites Sasha to join him and become a god. But Sasha responds by trying to cut him down, so Gregory blasts him away and says he has to accept the offer. Kariya then forces Hansa to give her soma so she can join the fight, but Gregory immediately reminds her to stay in her place by disintegrating Anastasia with a single attack. He then turns his focus back on Sasha, who is still raging about Olga and desperately trying to land a hit without realizing that his anger is only increasing the likelihood that Gregory will succeed. After taking some soma from Tomo's melon for extra energy, he drops Sasha with a nasty punch to the gut and gives him one last chance to switch sides. But Sasha quickly pulls out the blood sword again and attacks. This time, Gregory catches the sword with Tomo milk sacks and deceives him with her voice before firing off a plasma blast that opens holes all over Sasha's body. When Fool reminds him that Sasha is an important part of the plan, Gregory claims it won't be a problem since he will be able to create another Sasha after becoming god. However, things quickly take an unexpected turn when Sasha grabs Tomo's jugs and starts calling out to her until she regains consciousness. Despite being forced out of her body, Gregory still uses his gold manipulation to send a spear straight through Sasha's chest, instantly booking him a one-way trip to go see Olga, while Mafu and the others beg him to wake up. Leak every Disney movie you watched growing up. Olga tells him to go be with the girls because it's not yet time to join her in the afterlife. So he returns to his body and completely ignores the law of human nature, which states that a man with a spear in his heart should not be functioning. Upon seeing this, Gregory possesses Anastasia's body for one last fight, but instead of charging in without a plan, Sasha starts drinking soma from all the girls to max out his abilities. With this, he easily drives Gregory out of Anastasia's body with a single attack, and Kariya immediately takes over to trap his soul in a ball of copper. Sasha and Mafu then combine their strengths for one last attack, and after his soul gets sucked into the painting, Fool opens up a portal and escapes. Sasha and the girl then decide to lead the painting, as it is since taking it back to the regular world will attract another set of maniacs like Gregory. Days later, the girls return to school and continue life like nothing happened until Mafu notices her jugs reducing in size and starts to worry that Sasha will no longer like her. Meanwhile, Teresa has just called him out to talk about his next course of action now that his mission in Japan is over. But he tells her to mind her business right before Yuri shows up to give him his first day off in years. At the pool later on, Yuri spends a few minutes laughing at Matthew for losing her milk bags, but also offers to help her grow them back so Sasha will remain obsessed. Without even considering it, she accepts and takes Lizzie and Fumika along with her to Miyuri's place after classes. After hooking them up to her melon-inflating machine, Miyuri instructs Tomo to turn up the controls, but the machine overheats and explodes. So Sasha rushes over to make sure they are all okay. Upon seeing his face, Mafuyu gets embarrassed and tries to hide. But then he drops a movie ticket on the table and runs off. Later that night, Tomo tries to tease her about finally getting to go on a date with him, but she gets embarrassed and begs for help because he might lose interest after figuring out what happened to her jugs. The following day, she gets stressed after somehow managing to get her milkers back, and Sasha pretends to not notice a thing and continues acting nonchalant while they spend the rest of the day trying out all the stuff he was never allowed to. After ending their date with the movie, he waits until they get to a private spot outside before saying that he has to leave Japan. Just as she tries to ask why, he grabs her dress and rips it apart to reveal the pads she used to make her jugs look bigger. She immediately drops to hide them, but after scolding her for thinking he would not notice, he tells her to stop thinking that way because he never cared about their size in the first place. This causes her to get emotional, so she hugs him, and after he explains that there is a second mission he has to complete, she rewards him with one last drink of soma before promising to stay single until he returns. A few days later, in the Athos Grand Temple, Sasha is having a top-secret meeting with Yuri. He explains that among the 5 legendary magical artifacts, the Magdalena of Thunder has finally been located. So, Yuri commands Sasha to infiltrate a private school called Siri Academy to find the girl who is carrying this magical artifact. The next day, in the Siri Academy, Sasha is mingling with the girls under his new identity as a stunning schoolgirl. Hana also joins him and claims that they are old family friends, so no one suspects he's a guy in disguise. For a few seconds, Sasha plays along, but when his male instincts kick in, he conducts a hands-on inspection of one of the girls' jugs, causing hysteria all around. Back in the dorms, Sasha complains that being in a girl's uniform is the worst humiliation he's ever experienced in his life, but he eventually gets clad in a girly outfit. Seeing this, Hana admits that he looks better than Mia Khalifa, which only makes him more miserable. The next day, Suri Academy unveils its virtual reality classroom in which students' mental potential is amplified to turn them into geniuses. All the girls enter the digital world flawlessly, but Hana crashes harder than a meteor. On the other hand, one of her classmates named Tsubasa makes a graceful entrance and helps Hana on her feet as she introduces herself. Moments later, Sasha comes crashing down dressed as an OnlyFans model who is ready to sell some bath water on the internet. Seeing her eccentric style, Tsubasa reveals that in this environment, their bodies are the reflection of their desire. Just then, they see one of the popular girls in the class, Miyuki, show off her sword handling skills. Hana wonders who this girl is, only to learn that she is the leader of the Surrey Academy sorority, and she has more simps than Pokimane. When Sasha starts downplaying Miyuki, she approaches Sasha and demands to know who she really is. She smells a cross-dressing situation and challenges Sasha to a duel to confirm her suspicion. Without hesitation, Sasha agrees, and they get ready for a battle. The duel begins, and Sasha immediately complains that his new female body is too heavy in the torso. However, he decides to weaponize his biological assets and uses them as a distraction. At last, Sasha wins the duel, and Miyuki is left completely embarrassed. Like a true gentleman, Sasha approaches the girl and grabs her. Since the loser must follow one command from the winner, Sasha summons Miyuki for a private meeting after school. Miyuki assumes he has ill intentions, but Sasha just wants to do his job as advised by the church. He immediately lays the girl on his bed and starts unboxing her like a smartphone. Then, Sasha performs his Quasar ritual to check if she has the Magdalena of Thunder and fondles her airbags with utmost enjoyment. As he pumps the air out of Miyuki, the girl whimpers with pleasure. However, once he realizes she does not have the Magdalena of Thunder, Sasha dismisses her like a bad Tinder date, and the poor girl leaves the room dissatisfied. She immediately goes in for a shower and starts crying, but a possessive girl named Jida comforts her and promises to exact revenge on Sasha, even though Miyuki begs the tomboy to let it slide. Jida is determined to spank Sasha when the time comes. On the other hand, Hana and Sasha are walking through the hallway like they won an election. As they enter the classroom, everyone starts fangirling over Sasha because he bested their strongest student in a duel. Meanwhile, Hana finds Tsubasa slightly suspicious and approaches her, thinking she might be carrying the Magdalena of Thunder. Elsewhere, Sasha's old friends gather around to talk about some stupid stuff. They eventually end up taking a hot water bath, where the girls reminisce about their time with Sasha, since he was the only one with a coctopus that could pin them down. Back in the Suri Academy, Sasha's mission to find the Magdalena of Thunder continues. a new data coordination instructor, Yukinobu, is introduced to the class. He immediately singles out the quiet and unassuming Tsubasa and publicly praises her programming skills and analytical abilities. This makes the girl slightly embarrassed, and she looks at Miyuki for encouragement. But after the steamy session with Sasha, Miyuki's entire personality has taken a hit, and she starts getting lonely. Later, some chicks corner Tsubasa and ask her about her programming abilities. Tsubasa tries to explain her complex methods through a bizarre analogy involving lemurs, lions, and fairies. But it turns out to be even more confusing, causing her classmates to leave in frustration. While Sasha and Hana watch this from a distance, Miyuki walks into the academy compound. But as soon as she locks eyes with Sasha, the poor girl hurriedly walks away. In her dorm room, Miyuki is having a tough time figuring out what is actually happening with her hormonal situation. She remembers the day her mountain ranges were fondled and even plays with her vessel to recreate the memories, but quickly stops herself. At this point, Miyuki has become emotionally unstable, so her devoted follower, Jita, watches with concern and resentment. However, Miyuki simply runs out of the room like I show speed. It is then revealed that Jita is working for the new shady-looking instructor, Yukinobu. In his private chambers, she confirms that she is monitoring Miyuki, but does not quite understand why. Yukinobu explains that the Church of Athos currently believes Miyuki is the most likely candidate to be the Magdalena of Thunder. When Jita questions the importance of the elemental circuit, Yukinobu assures her that its significance has recently become critical. He also correctly deduces that Jita's personal feelings for Miyuki are clouding her professional judgment. The girl tries to deny this accusation, but before she elaborates, Yukinobu dismisses her like a rescue dog. On the other hand, Miyuki's existential crisis is getting serious, as she tends to be alone most of the time. Just then, Tsubasa walks into her room and invites the blue-haired hottie to bathe with her. Hoping to reconnect, Miyuki agrees, and they go to a luxurious bath together as they soak their jugs and containers. Tsubasa explains that her melons haven't grown in size for years, but this makes Miyuki feel self-conscious, and she walks out of the bath. Later, Tsubasa tries to apologize to her big-chested friend, but Miyuki tells her it's not her fault. Tormented by the memory of Sasha's Quasar ritual, Miyuki states that she has broken her purity and can no longer give Tsubasa a sensual moment in bed, misinterpreting this as a personal rejection. Tsubasa tries to push away, urging her to live freely and not be burdened by their childhood promises. However, the conversation ends in heartbreak, with Tsubasa left feeling abandoned and Miyuki sinking further into her guilt and isolation. The following day in the classroom, two dumb girls are having trouble with their calculations, but Sasha steps in like a G and solves the problem in a few seconds. This causes the girls to drip liquid from under their skirts. But Miyuki gets increasingly distant from her classmates. From a distance, a little girl named Ayami notices this and gets determined to help her. Just then, Jita approaches the little girl, hoping to squash Sasha's popularity. Using Ayami's innocence, she begins a manipulation campaign, spreading rumors that Sasha is using deceitful methods to trick students, strongly implying that Miyuki was one of her victims. The act of psychological warfare is designed to isolate Sasha, and it worked like a charm. Ayami is instantly fired up, and she gets motivated to exact revenge on this Sasha girl at any cost. Meanwhile, in the shadowy backrooms, Yukinobu unveils his latest computer, which is powered by some magical anime stuff. This computer was supposed to track the Magdalena of Thunder accurately, but Yukinobu gets blocked out of the system every time. In the virtual reality classroom, Ayami challenges Sasha for a duel, but she is just a little girl with ponytails. She remembers the time when Miyuki helped her when nobody was there for her. Ayami cannot let her friend suffer alone, but she soon passes out from exhaustion. Suddenly, Miyuki saves her with her giant knockers and tells her to stop this madness immediately. She then challenges Sasha to a rematch to restore her honor. However, Tsubasa intervenes, stepping forward to fight in Miyuki's place. The melon sniffer accepts the challenge and immediately gets into position for the battle. Within a few seconds, it becomes clear that Tsubasa is far more powerful than anyone imagined. She unleashes a raw, overwhelming force that puts Sasha on the defensive. Meanwhile, Yukinobu is watching this battle from his lair, but suddenly, the system starts glitching. Tsubasa's power is so immense that it destabilizes the entire verse system, creating fractures in the virtual reality fabric. Then, she demonstrates an innate and perfect control of the virtual environment, pushing Sasha to his absolute limit. After transforming into her evolved form, Tsubasa chases after Sasha like a hungry dog and starts attacking him. As the melon sniffer simply runs away, all their classmates watch the battle in awe. Sasha tries to damage Tsubasa's armor using his lasers, but he ends up colliding with a defensive barrier. He is then ambushed by a barrage of attacks from the side, causing his clothes to rip off like a Bollywood actor in a fistfight. After the humiliating defeat, Sasha sits hopelessly on the floor. While Jita congratulates his opponent, Jita claims that since she is the winner, Tsubasa gets to suckle some power from her opponent's biological containers. But when she refuses to take advantage of other people, Jita steps forward and performs a thorough vacuuming session on Sasha's milkers. Suddenly, the system's safety protocols engage, triggering a forced logout that ejects all the students from the virtual world. While the students surround Tsubasa and praise her, Jita gets a message from her boss, Yukinobu. In a text message, he reveals that Sasha is not a woman and that he is male undercover agent. For the first time in his life, Sasha experiences the sensation of having his soma drained from a female's perspective. This shocking experience gives him a new understanding of the very energy he regularly consumes. Hana starts teasing him for being a weakling, but Sasha immediately corners her and drains the soma out of her body. Meanwhile, in the shadowy back room, Yukinobu has finally identified the true host of the High Ancient Circuit. It is revealed that Tsubasa is the Magdalena of Thunder. The next day, as Sasha is walking inside the school hallways, Ayami sneaks up behind him. Hoping to avenge her friend, Miyuki, she uses a stick and lunges at Sasha, but her attack is immediately nullified, and Ayami finds herself inside the elevator, with her posture upside down. While the girl struggles to maintain balance, Sasha takes advantage of this opportunity. Then, he unboxes Ayame and drains the soma out of her body as well. At last, the girl is left destroyed in the elevator, while Sasha walks out like a distinguished edgelord. Later that evening, the shadowy Yukinobu approaches a girl named Shaiba and hands her a cup of coffee. Since the man is her teacher, the unsuspecting student gulps it down without a second thought. Shaiba is working on a supercomputer project, and Yukinobu praises her for her big brain energy. But suddenly, the girl passes out, inducing a creepy smile from Yukinobu. A few days later, Hana and Sasha are in the laundry room washing their filthy little clothes. Sasha does not want to wash his undergarments, but he reluctantly takes them off and throws them inside the washing machine. Even though he is a dude, Sasha gets embarrassed like an OnlyFans creator. While they quarrel like a divorced couple, Tsubasa walks into the laundry room in her wheelchair. She also wants to wash her clothes, and Hana offers to help her. However, the girl ends up tripping on the shelf and accidentally pours detergent on top of Tsubasa. Later that night, Hana helps the girl to clean up, and she scrubs Tsubasa's back. While she tells the story of her life, Sasha waits outside the bathroom, waiting for the perfect opportunity to drain the soma out of Tsubasa's juggernauts. While Hana listens to her ramblings, Tsubasa explains that 7 years ago, she had an accident in a virtual reality environment, which inadvertently took her grandfather's life. Ever since that day, Miyuki was the one who raised her. However, Hana does care about her little sob story, and she starts fondling Tsubasa's vessel to see if she has the Magdalena of Thunder. For a moment, the girl is in an extreme pleasure-induced trance, so Sasha steps into the bathroom. He quickly collapses on the female vessel and grabs her knockers like it owes him money. Then, without further ado, Sasha drains the soma from her body as well. But surprisingly, he tells Hana that Tsubasa does not have the Magdalena of Thunder inside her. A couple of floors below, Ayame cries to herself, feeling devastated that Sasha took advantage of her for the third time in 2 days. She wants to confide in Miyuki, but the girl is not in her room. Miyuki is still wondering why Tsubasa took the initiative to help her that day, knowing it could bring a lot of trouble her way. On the other hand, Shaiba wakes up in a dark Discord server room, where Yukinobu greets her like a total creep. He then reveals his experiments with students and promises to do the same to her. Yukinobu asks the poor girl one last favor, her life force to create the most powerful supercomputer this world has ever seen. Using the energy of his most powerful students, he wants to awaken the essence of Magdalena of Thunder at any cost. Then, he approaches Shaiba and drains the soma out of her quarter-pounder melon. As the girl screams in terror, Yukinobu brings out his Wolverine-style claws and stabs the girl to end her misery. Soon, Shaiba's vat fills with red liquid, and Yukinobu gets one step closer to achieving his stupid dream of awakening the Magdalena of Thunder. The following morning, Tsubasa wakes up in her bed, but cannot find Miyuki beside her. She also feels like her knockers have shrunken in size. Later, while everyone is in the class, Yukinobu informs the students that 10 talented students are helping him build the supercomputer, and they will be absent for at least 3 months. Sasha immediately grows suspicious, but he decides to lie low for now. Meanwhile, Ayame is right outside the door, ready to smack Sasha for draining her melon fluids last night. However, he catches her in the act and takes her inside an empty classroom. He then comes outside like a predator, and Ayame is once again left destroyed but satisfied. Moments later, Tsubasa is in the academy hallway when Yukinobu approaches her. He claims that he has something important to discuss and leads her into his shadowy lair. Yukinobu tells her that her father, Haruyuki Amano, built this supercomputer 10 years ago. When Tsubasa insists she has no memories of that, Yukinobu transforms into a creepy uncle from the bus stop. Sensing some simp activity on the horizon, Tsubasa tries to roll away in her wheelchair, but Yukinobu's magical barriers stop her. On the other hand, Sasha and Hana are discussing the Magdalena of Thunder and how tough it is to track it down. Suddenly, Hana gets caught in a trap made by Ayame, and Sasha once again destroys her organs. Just as he is about to rescue Hana from the net, someone attacks them with Naruto-style weapons. It turns out to be Jita, who is still annoyed that she diddled a man's artificially crafted melons, thinking Sasha was a girl. Since none of them is willing to back down, Jita unleashes a powerful attack, but Sasha manages to dodge it effortlessly. He then pulls out his ridiculously long iron weapon and threatens to dismantle Jita's head. At this point, the girl realizes that she messed with the wrong person, but it's already too late. Sasha is inches away from Jita's knockers and raises his weapon to attack her. However, just as he is about to strike her down, Yukinobu creates a barrier between them and saves Jita's life. It turns out that Yukinobu used to be a member of the church a few years ago, but lately he is operating solo and is also after the Magdalene of Thunder. Sasha is slightly afraid of this man because his weapon is made from carbon silicate, whereas his sword is made from simple, stupid, rusty iron. Despite this, the two clash like stray cats, and surprisingly, Sasha manages to stand his ground. Yukinobu unleashes a magical emblem on the ground and claims that he already has the Magdalene of Thunder. His attacks are faster than bullets, and the force of the impact sends Sasha deep into the forest. Even then, Yukinobu does not stop. He unleashes an even powerful attack, but a chick with a short skirt saves his miserable cross-dressing life. The girl turns out to be Curia, a copper-wielding warrior from the Great Church of Athos. Seeing the immense power emanating from her body, Yukinobu is forced to retreat. He tries to attack Curia from the ground, but Hana takes the damage and saves this new girl's life. A few days later, Hana finally regains consciousness. While Curia gently caresses her hair, she thanks Hana for saving her life and immediately gets into action. While the barely conscious Hana screams at this nasty girl to stop, Curia spreads saliva all around her vessel. Then, she partially unboxes herself and tells Hana to do whatever she wants to do with her. However, the girl grows suspicious because Curia would never offer her body to anyone. But suddenly, she slams Hana back to the same position and continues her nasty activities. In reality, Hana is tied up in a simulation, where Yukinobu is watching her scream with pleasure on his computer screen. He then approaches his console and increases the intensity of the simulation, causing another one of his victims to experience this pleasure-induced trance. A few days later, Miyuki is in her classroom, staring at the picture of Tsubasa and her grandfather. She has been losing touch with reality, and even her less important friends are starting to get concerned. Meanwhile, Yukinobu is in his lair when Jita walks into the room. She tells him that she wants to end her duties and return to her country of Mongolia. When Yukinobu reminds her that leaving her duty is the same as dying, Jita explains that she has failed her duty as a warrior. However, after some words of comfort from the literal villain, the girl walks out of the room slightly happier than before. Meanwhile, Sasha is lying unconscious in a hospital bed where Curia is giving him company. Surprisingly, Hana is also lying unconscious on a different bed, but she looks way worse than Sasha. Curia cannot understand why this is happening, but gently caresses Hana for saving her life. But she suddenly gets up with fire in her eyes. She knows that the Magdalene of Thunder has been stolen, and that they don't have time to lie around like a pit bull. Deep in the woods, Ayami is walking by herself, still frustrated by the fact that Sasha milked her like a cow. But just then, she bumps into Curia and immediately falls in love with her. Curia reveals that she needs to use the bathroom, and Ayami takes her to a nearby PP spot. While she is waiting outside for Curia, she hears a cry for help. During her totally unnecessary investigation, her hands are forcibly tied up, and she's presented like a Thanksgiving turkey. Without further ado, Curia gets right on. She runs her hands through Ayami's dress and rips it apart. Then she diddles the Japanese vessel, hoping to extract some somatic information out of them cakes. As Ayami yells in pleasure-induced trance for the millionth time, she once again donates her soma to another person. Inside the academy hallway, Miyuki is walking like a Victorian princess suffering from malaria. She is soon interrupted by Jita, who wants to spend some time with her in private. As the two make their way outside the academy compound, Jita reveals that she knows where Tsubasa is. Miyuki is immediately amped up hearing this and gets determined to save her sister. However, Jita tells her that she should forget about Tsubasa because she might not come back alive. When Miyuki asks who she really is, Jita grabs her knockers for no reason at all. Then, with a jiggling bounce, she walks away, while Miyuki gets a new sense of purpose: to save her sister, Tsubasa. On the other hand, Ayami is completely immobilized. While Curia takes some footage of her for OnlyFans account, the little girl wants to go to the bathroom, but Curia does not allow her. Instead, she asks Ayami about the Abyss, which is the central area in the last layer of their virtual reality classroom. The girl tells her that the place is off limits, but some sorority members can still go in if they want to. Since Ayami is in the sorority, Curia forces her to take her to the Abyss. With no other option, the girl agrees and then finally releases the PP. As Curia sets her free, she promises Ayami to treat her a lot better from now on. Then, she grabs Ayami's containers once again and does the same stupid routine. Meanwhile, Sasha is in a medically induced trance, thinking about how powerful his opponent Yukinobu was. He is then visited by his friends from the church, trying to motivate him. However, this makes Sasha furious in his sleep, and he tells the chicks to go away, but they show him how he really looks to make fun of him. Even when the girls continue bothering him in his dreams, Sasha cannot seem to wake up. The leader of the Church of Athos, Yuri, stands next to him, wondering if Sasha actually became a feminine man. He then wonders if Curia alone will be able to handle the mission. On the other hand, Curia has turned Ayami into her donkey, and they're trying to get inside the back doors of the virtual reality environment. Ayami is initially hesitant, but after a couple of slaps on the backside, she agrees to give Kiria access to the back door. Simultaneously, Yukinobu is conducting his experiment on Tsubasa. As the poor girl screams in pain, he uses his defensive spells, hoping to extract energy from her body. It turns out that finding the essence of Magdalena of Thunder is not an isolated project. He explains that to successfully extract the power, hundreds of silicon circuits are necessary. Then, the circuits have to be bundled into a large network with a powerful human mind. Inside her dorm room is going through the pictures of Tsubasa with tears in her eyes. With a heavy heart, she deletes all the memories she has of her sister. On the other hand, Kiria and Ayami reach the back doors called the Abyss, where they see hundreds of girls screaming and begging for help. Kiria notices Hana in the distance and immediately sets off to save her. But suddenly, she is interrupted by Jida. The two face off in a nasty exchange, as both girls are extremely well-trained fighters. Since Jida has the home court advantage, she manages to fend off the attacks using a simulated environment. Ayami gets paranoid and tries to log out of the server, but Jida almost slices her body in half. At the same time, inside Yukinobu's lair, he notices a bright light glowing on Tsubasa's forehead. The supercomputer also lights up, and Yukinobu laughs maniacally. He has finally obtained the high ancient circuit, the Magdalene of Thunder. While all this is happening, a yellow orb falls out of the sky, and Miyuki is certain that her sister Tsubasa is in trouble. She promises not to let her sister transform into a monster and vows to protect her integrity. Miyuki grabs her artifact like a sausage, which emits a white liquid towards her neck. This transforms into an emblem, and Miyuki attracts all the powers her artifact had stored for centuries. Eventually, the depressed girl evolves into a Pokémon-type character and vows to destroy everyone who hurts Tsubasa. Meanwhile, Yukinobu still needs to bypass Tsubasa's grandfather's defense program, but he is awfully close to his goal. In a flashback, a young Miyuki discovers an artifact shaped like an ice horse. As she holds it, the artifact releases a powerful icy energy that shoots towards the sky. Soon, she finds Tsubasa lying unconscious on the ground like an injured Jon Snow. In a desperate attempt to revive her, Miyuki begins to nurse her jugs through her shirt, and to her surprise, Tsubasa comes back to life. Far away from the Siri Girls Academy, 6 girls with giant knockers are having a house party. Sasha is also in the mix, and he seems to have completely accepted his fate as a girl. But as soon as they start talking about the center of gravity of their Unga Bungas, Sasha starts getting paranoid. Suddenly, he wakes up in the hospital, and it turns out that he just regained consciousness. He is then greeted by the leader of Athos, Yuri, who claims that the Magdalene of Thunder has fallen into the hands of Adept, a notorious criminal enterprise run by Yukinobu. Meanwhile, Tsubasa is still tied up in the supercomputer's mainframe like a Thanksgiving turkey. Just then, Miyuki emerges in her Pokémon form and tries to destroy the Magdalene of Thunder. The leader explains that it is a duty of the circuit bearers to unalive their friends if their power falls into the wrong hands. It is also revealed that Miyuki also possessed an elemental circuit called Maria of Gold. This was discovered by Kiria during her investigation, but she is still inside the virtual world, battling the Jida chick for over 20 hours. Suddenly, a massive void opens up in the simulation, and it starts sucking them like a crazy black hole. Jida holds Kiria's leg to drag her down as well, but thankfully, Ayami manages to knock her away. Immediately, Kiria saves the little girl from drifting into the black hole using her rope, while the stupid kamikaze soldier gets pulled inside the void. On the other hand, Yukinobu is in his lair, thinking about seizing the world's communication channels using the Magdalene of Thunder. He wants total control of the world's satellites and missiles, hoping to reach absolute god status in human form. Yukinobu devours the girls in his captivity like farm animals and has already eliminated over 50 girls. But this man was not always evil. It is revealed that when Yukinobu was young, his entire race of people were at the mercy of the government's power. The people were outraged by the humiliation, but there was nothing they could do. Due to this rage, Yukinobu manifested his destructive abilities from the god himself, and he eliminated multiple government soldiers with just his willpower. While his rage continued, he destroyed the entire city so that there would be no more suffering. In the present, the leader tells Sasha that Miyuki has destroyed the East Asian military facility, and she's getting even more destructive. He then orders his soldiers to destroy the Magdalene of Thunder and virtual reality, since that's the only way to stop this carnage. Sasha is hesitant to accept this mission because he will indirectly eliminate many innocent people, but the leader remains adamant. Furthermore, he claims that a special task force called Meteora has already been dispatched. This group is God's proxies, and they are also called the Divine Punishment Enforcement Unit. While Sasha continues to act like a total freak, Yuri gives him an emergency atonement device, which has a built-in elemental circuit. Sasha is shocked to hear that this device can blow up the entire academy if anything goes south, but since he's the warrior for the church, he lights up his inner demon and gets ready for war. On the other hand, Miyuki finally gets in contact with her sister Tsubasa. The little girl gets sad to see Miyuki in a demon form, but the Pokemon chick does not care. She claims that things like status and honor are meaningless, and that Tsubasa is the only one she cares about. While the little girl freaks out, Miyuki promises to take her to a place where they won't have to suffer. Suddenly, Tsubasa starts glitching in the simulation, before vanishing completely in the mainframe. This is the final straw, and Miyuki completely loses her cool. She lunges at the mainframe to break it apart, but just then, Sasha intervenes and manages to stop her. He claims that if Miyuki breaks the mainframe, everyone inside, including Tsubasa, will be dead. However, Miyuki is consumed with so much hate that she does not seem to care about life and death. Meanwhile, Yoshinobu begins his procedure to completely disable the supercomputer's defenses. Unfortunately for him, his sinister plan is interrupted by Kiriya, who assures him that his minion Jita was exterminated. Yoshinobu has so much aura that he nonchalantly tells Kiriya that he does not care about one less soldier in his team. Then, he launches an attack at the girls, but Ayame enables her distraction technique, rendering the attacks useless. To make her work harder, Kiriya continues to motivate her by spanking her on the rear end. Just then, Ayame lets out a loud scream, which catches the attention of Hana. After being kidnapped, the girl found a job in Yoshinobu's lair as a 6'7" chair. But Hana has had enough, and she immediately seeks support from her friends. Yoshinobu then climbs a small rock like a monkey and reveals his plan to purge the entire world to end suffering once and for all. Outside the lair, Sasha and Miyuki continue their battle, and neither of them wants to compromise. Miyuki launches a barrage of attacks at this cross-dressing freak, but he casually dodges them. However, when Miyuki makes a 10-foot hole in a concrete building by simply farting near it, Sasha becomes aware of her true power. Realizing he is running low on energy, the freak takes a vial of Soma to maintain his composure. Suddenly, Miyuki charges at him at lightning speed, but Sasha narrowly escapes it. He then reveals his stupid-looking weapon and slashes Miyuki like a butcher. The beta male immediately starts sobbing because he didn't intend to hurt his friends. While Miyuki lies down in a puddle of her own red liquid, Sasha grabs the atonement device. He wants to blow everything up and end everyone's misery at the same time. However, Miyuki's body starts illuminating, and she regenerates into her Pokemon version in a matter of seconds. Then she attacks Sasha with her sword, causing the man to land on his knees. Just when Miyuki is about to land her final blow, Yoshinobu communicates with them through the mainframe. He reveals that he now controls the entire world and that there is no point in fighting. When Sasha demands to know where Tsubasa is, Yoshinobu displays the poor girl on the screen. Miyuki gets furious seeing this and lunges to attack him, but unfortunately, a huge crystal rod penetrates her body, rendering her totally useless now. Even Sasha is blown away by the impact, and for a moment, it seems like everything's gone to hell. But just then, Sasha activates the emergency atonement device, and a bright light engulfs everything. While the useless warrior loses his balance, a hooded girl catches him just in time, who turns out to be none other than Mafuyu. This useless warrior cannot believe his eyes and starts playing with her jugs to confirm if he is not dreaming. But after extensive physical inspection, Mafuyu gets annoyed and lands a 2-pounder on his head. Seeing this, Yuri breathes a sigh of relief, since other dependable warriors are also on the battlefield. Then, the two visit the mainframe site, but Yukinobu's machines immediately attack them. Somehow, Mafuyu manages to save her and Sasha's lives, but suddenly, the machine strikes a massive fireball at them. It is revealed that a few months ago, Sasha disappeared from the Street Mihailov Academy. But it was around that time Mafuyu discovered that she was the wielder of the Maria of the Blade. The power of this circuit began producing Soma inside her body. One day, the church's messenger told her that the circuit was integrated into her body at a molecular level and can never be removed. With no other options, Mafuyu was forced to become an operator of the Maria of the Blade for the Orthodox Church of Anandland. Initially, she didn't like the responsibility, but soon, Mafuyu started doing naughty things with Kiriya, and they had the time of their lives. Hearing this story, Hana gets jealous, because she always wanted to spend a night with Kiriya. However, she calmly explains that sleeping with Mafuyu was simply for training purposes. Even then, Kiriya reminisces about the time she spent with this Mafuyu girl, which makes Hana grow even more frustrated. On the battlefield, Mafuyu has rescued Sasha, and she lays him down in a safe location. While the two hide from the mainframe, Miyuki has had enough of nerd talk and smashes the crystal that was paralyzing her. However, this has drained a lot of Soma from her body, as she cannot even stand up straight. But the nasty Yukinobu keeps the battle going by displaying a video of him fondling Tsubasa's windshield. Seeing Miyuki in a battered state because of her, Tsubasa tries to mediate the battle. She claims that Miyuki was always there to take care of her, but she slowly realized that she was becoming a burden to Miyuki and started ignoring her only true friend. The Pokemon gets furious at this statement because she always considered Tsubasa as her little sister. Since it is practically impossible to rescue Tsubasa safely, Miyuki makes a judgment call and decides to destroy the mainframe to end this battle. She even manages to dodge a few crystals that paralyzed her earlier. But unfortunately, a fish-shaped crystal ambushes her from the side and restricts her movement. On the other hand, this stupid Sasha apologizes to Mafuyu for being a totally useless protagonist. Obviously, the girl assures him that it's not his fault. Since the boy is almost on the verge of death, he begs for Mafuyu's container juice for 5 minutes. The girl just met him, and Sasha is already draining liquid from her body. A few moments later, Sasha emerges with main character energy and breaks the crystal that was paralyzing Miyuki. Mufyu also accompanies him, and the mainframe demon is shocked to see the group reunited once again. With Sasha and Mufyu combining their powers, their attacks are guaranteed to land with nano-level precision. As they navigate their way through the crystal attacks, the duo runs towards Yukinobu's mainframe. But unfortunately, these idiots get knocked down by a swift attack, leaving this stupid Sasha injured once again. Tired of being a beta male, Sasha gets up and clenches his sword. With Mufuyu's support, they land a massive strike on Yukinobu's mainframe, and everything goes silent for a minute. At the same time, Ayami is trying to hack the virtual environment, but suddenly, all communication channels get interrupted. Since the girls have no idea what's happening outside, Hana decides to use her consciousness to connect to the black hole, which is nothing more than her backside. Without skipping a beat, Ayami inserts her hand deep into Hana's rear end. Suddenly, the girls transport their digital version inside Yukinobu's mainframe, where Tsubasa is tied up like a sack of potatoes. They can communicate with each other, but sadly, Kiria is not strong enough to rescue her. Tsubasa has already accepted her fate and is ready to end her life, but Hana still thinks it's possible to save her. While these two bicker about stupid stuff, Kiria comes up with a plan. She asks Hana to take over the Magdalene of Thunder, and Tsubasa to demonstrate how to control it. With everyone on the same page, the transfer process begins. Ayama flicks out her computer screens because inside the simulation, everyone is just a simple numerical block. Hana starts rubbing her body with Tsubasa, and they get even more intense as time goes on. Suddenly, the girls fuse their energy particles, which emanates a bright light throughout the city. This simple act of rubbing bodies together ends up freeing Tsubasa. While Hana inherits the Magdalene of Thunder, Yukinobu gets furious to see his plan destroyed, so he decides to self-destruct and eliminate everyone around him. However, the girls manage to log out of the simulation just in time. As the entire mainframe explodes into smithereens, Miyuki is finally reunited with Tsubasa, and Sasha comes face to face with Yukinobu. However, this creepy man starts stealing soma from some random girl's jugs, making Sasha's flagpole point true north. With this, the two engage in a brutal fight, and this time, Sasha is full of energy. He effortlessly dodges all of Yukinobu's attacks while carrying Tsubasa to a safe location. Then, he marches towards the creep with his weird-looking sword and slashes his body in half, successfully defeating his enemy. After the battle, life in the academy resumes, and the girls start doing girly stuff like nothing ever happened. Tsubasa is reunited with Miyuki, and they are happier than ever before. On the other hand, a shady-looking priest named Crawford is talking with Father Yuri. He starts ranting about punishing sinners and how Sasha should have handed over the Magdalene of Thunder to the Athos Grand Temple. However, Yuri pledges loyalty towards his warrior and defends Sasha's actions, claiming it was the right thing to do. Despite this, Crawford is more interested in his holy war than in basic wartime tactics. Meanwhile, Jida awakens in an unfamiliar room, completely disoriented and tied up like a turkey. Later, she takes a stroll in the woods, when she notices a girl nearby and immediately holds her hostage. The girl happens to be the student council president, who finds herself stripped out of her clothes. Without prior notice, Jida drains her soma like candy, and the girl loses consciousness. Moments later, while strolling through the academy, Tomo notices Jida and the president lying unconscious on the ground. She immediately takes them to the nursing station, where the nurse, Urara, tells Tomo that Jida needs to rest. She claims that the crystal hanging from her chest is a magical device that converts pain into pleasure when she interacts with Soma. While Tomo finds this stuff fascinating, Urara reveals that removing the crystal forcibly would be fatal, even though it poses no immediate threat to Jida's daily life. Every time they flick the crystal, Jida screams with pleasure. Suddenly, she regains consciousness, and Jida is immediately enamored to see two giant airbags hanging in front of her eyes. After the nurse departs, the girl feels a deep sense of dread, as she has no idea what happened to her before regaining consciousness. Feeling helpless, Jida tries to go back to sleep, but the eccentric girl, Tomo, lies right beside her. When Jida tries to leave, the girl simply hugs her like a Japanese ditty. After she falls asleep, Jida takes a look at her airbags. She cannot seem to handle the temptation and tries to drain some soma out of Tomo, but this results in extreme pain due to the crystals hanging on her chest. However, Jida is ready to face the consequences and drains Tomo's soma despite the pain it causes her. The next day, the two girls are sandwiched on top of each other when suddenly, a psychotic girl named Lily enters the room. She immediately falls in love with Jida's beauty and decides to give her a makeover. After the stupid introductions, the girls go to a clothing shop, where they are greeted by Lily's assistant, Edgar. Inside, Lily tells Jida to get dressed in revealing outfits before the fortune-telling ceremony. But suddenly, the shop's owner stops them from acting like total idiots. Lily tries to mediate the situation, but the owner tells them about a sinister crime happening inside the academy. Some guys are collecting girls' pictures as a hobby and share them among their friends via Discord. This is a serious offense, but the criminals have not been arrested yet. The owner wants to shut down the shop till then, but Lily threatens to flip her in the bed. With their airbags colliding with each other, the owner has no other option. On top of that, Lily claims that if the shop is closed prematurely, she will make a TikTok video about how bad the service in the shop is, feeling completely powerless in this situation. The owner is forced to allow the girls to act like complete idiots for a few hours. Later, the girls get prepared for the fortune-telling ceremony, and Lily nominates Tomo for the ritual due to her massive racks. They then unbox themselves and sit in front of each other, surrounded by stupid candles and stuff. As Edgar and Jita watch the scene unfold, Lily starts draining Tomo's soma like a savage, as the sound of pleasure fills the room. After the ritual, the girls hide behind a bush outside the building, hoping to catch the criminals who are supplying girls' sensitive images. Suddenly, two guys emerge from the shadows, and they exchange a USB drive for some cash. Lily immediately springs into action and tries to subdue the creeps. However, one of the guys sprays some chemical on her face, rendering her unconscious. As the creepy guys stare at Lily's giant unga bunga, they decide to take a picture to add to their collection. Just as they flip her over for a better view, Jita makes her entrance. The creep gets ready with his chemical spray, but the girl is far too experienced for an attack like that. However, when Tomo is held hostage by another creep, Jita is forced to change her strategy. Just as she is about to use her magical ability, the crystal on her chest glows red, and all her energy is drained from her body. The force from her body causes the ground to shatter, but soon, she cannot even move due to extreme exhaustion. As the creep celebrates this stupid move, Jita tries to get back to her feet, but she falls down every time. Just then, the criminal slashes Tomo's clothes and Jita, filled with anger, charges at him. But the man effortlessly dodges her attack and holds her at knife point. Just when the girls are about to give up their dignity, Urara rushes to the scene and throws a magic crystal at Tomo's melons. She explains that this crystal can cause massive damage if used carefully. But before she can finish, Tomo's marshmallows start glowing and she transforms into a freaky-looking anime girl. Before she can process what's happening, her knockers are exposed and the tips grow in size. Suddenly, the airbags start throwing fire like a flamethrower, and she accidentally chops down a massive tree. For a moment, Urara wonders if this was the right decision, but looking at Tomo's power upgrade, even Jita is left in total shock. The next day in class, Jita formally introduces herself in front of the class as the newest member of the Street Mihailov's Academy. Just then, another student enters the room, and it's none other than the ugly Sasha. He is in his normal male version since they are no longer in Suri Academy. While Tomo celebrates his admission internally, Mufuyu also barges into the room like she's holding a big, fat stream of pee-pee. Finally reunited with her childhood friend, Tomo's happiness knows no bounds, and the two lock eyes passionately. The following day, Mufuyu and Tomo are in the hot bath, spending a steamy time with each other. Ever since the Battle of Yukinobu, the girls got separated, but now, they are finally reunited. For no reason at all, Tomo gets up and reaches out to hug Mufuyu, but the creepy red-haired girl does not seem to mind. The girls talk about how much they've missed each other and share stories about their battle experiences. But as soon as the conversation gets boring, Tomo surprises her friend with a surprise airbag rubbing session. Mufuyu thoroughly enjoys this experience, but it is revealed that Jita is also taking advantage of this sight from a distance. However, she is caught red-handed by Sasha, who also wanted to take a peek. Hearing the commotion outside, Tomo and Mufuyu both get out, ready to land a series of attacks on the freaks snooping around. The next day in class, Sasha yawns so bad that it attracts his teacher's attention, but the nonchalant dude simply tells her that her lecture is boring. Curious by this, she calls Sasha to solve an extremely tough equation, but he completes it in a few seconds. As a reward to himself, Sasha grabs his teacher's knockers, and surprisingly, the woman enjoys the experience more than anything. Tomo and Mufuyu are shell-shocked by this sight, but Sasha tries to remain a Sigma. Just then, Mufuyu slaps him on the head, telling him that battle rewards do not apply in the classroom. She then trips him over like a sack of potatoes and forces him to listen to her stupid logic. However, the warrior mentality in Sasha is permanent, and he tells the red-haired chick that rewards after victory are a natural part of life. Eventually, he is forced to apologize, and all the girls in the class are shocked to see how powerful Mufuyu has become after the battle. Meanwhile, a little girl named Fumika has fallen in love with Sasha, as her skirt gets filled with human gravy. Later, she tells Hana about her feelings and starts acting like a complete idiot. Hana convinces her to confess her feelings, but Fumika gets embarrassed by the mere thought of a confession. Just then, the annoying Lily makes her appearance, and she offers to do a special fortune-telling session free of cost. She claims to have the power of God, and Fumika immediately believes her, but Hana has seen better things in her life. As she begins her fortune-telling session for Fumika's life, she tells her that nothing can save her. When Lily tells her that an exorcism is the only remedy, Fumika believes it and leaves the room to prepare. The little girl is ready to do literally anything to be loved by Sasha, completely unaware of the fact that he is still loyal to the Temple of Athos and his boss Yuri. In a video call, Sasha tells him that Jita's presence is bugging him since the girl was playing from the enemy's side. However, Yuri tells him to chill out and bang a new Homo sapien every night. Sasha is ready to get back to another mission, but Yuri reveals an important piece of information. He claims that after the incident with Yukinobu's mainframe, Father Crawford has been acting like a piece of garbage, and that he might cook up some plans to unalive him. Later that evening, as everyone sits down for dinner, Jida looks visibly uncomfortable sharing a table with her ex-enemy Sasha. The two quarrel like rabid dogs, leaving the other girls in an uncomfortable situation. However, seeing Jida genuinely freak out, Tomo grabs her hand to calm her down. She tells Jida to relax, and like some kind of hypnosis, the girl gets rid of her hysteria. On the other hand, Kiria and Hana are having their own little ceremony in the bathroom. Hana submits herself to this chick, and Kiria even hits her with a whip. Weirdly, she seems to enjoy being in this submissive position, even though Hana is the one who currently wields the power of the Magdalene of Thunder. The following day, Fumika is shocked to see Hana plastered up like a war veteran. Just then, Jida grabs her attention, and they later meet outside the classroom. She tells Hana that being a schoolgirl is not her thing, and that she wants to battle someone immediately. Hearing this, Hana comes up with an idea, and she takes the chick to the arcade. There, the annoying Lily once again appears, and she unveils all the facilities available in this place. While the girls are not sure why this witch is always amped up like an electrical grid, Lily threatens them with a life sentence. Just then, Sasha interrupts the girly talk as he prepares to impress them with his bowling skills. Desperate for a battle, Jida challenges him to a duel, and they both get into their warrior mode. Sasha goes first, and as the girls watch with glee in their eyes, he shoots the ball with all his might. However, the ball slides right into the gutter, and he scores a whopping 0 points. All his girlfriends had high hopes for him, but the warrior apparently sucks at this game. Jida goes next, and for a moment, her strike looks promising. Unfortunately, even her ball slides right into the gutter. The match continues for another hour, and they cannot seem to land a single strike at the pins. Amid all this chaos, Fumika walks up to the ramp, and the entire hall stops to a screeching halt. She then strikes a perfect shot, and not a single pin is left untouched. Seeing this, everyone in the hall is shocked that a little girl like Fumika defeated Sasha and Jida. After being an instant celebrity, she approaches Sasha as a victor. Since the winner can demand anything from the loser, Fumika gets ready to demand her desires. However, to everyone's surprise, she tells Sasha to get along with Jida and explains that jealousy and fights between friends are not a good thing. Later, she regrets her decision and cries her heart out, berating herself for not using the opportunity to confess her feelings. Hana finds this extremely funny, but she tells the little girl to keep her head high. On the other hand, Lily's assistant, Edgar, is sitting alone, ruminating about something. When Lily calls out to her, she immediately softens her gaze and approaches her. Immediately, the annoying girl hugs her. But as the little girl struggles to breathe, Edgar lets out a sinister smile. She has found out that Sasha belongs to the Temple of Athos and is planning to make her move. Within the sacred walls of the Temple of Athos, Mafiu stands in front of a towering statue of divinity. She then exposes her body and gets ready for a sacred ritual. Within seconds, her body pulses with Soma and the energy of the Sword of Maria, as she seeks to channel its power. However, Jida has been observing this scene from the shadows, as her vessel is racked with the pain caused by the crystal on her knockers. This attracts Mafiu's attention, and as she approaches her, Jida crumbles due to the intensifying pain. As Mafiu extends a helping hand, Jida seizes the opportunity to hold her hostage. She demands that Mafiu use her abilities to set her free from the stupid-looking hippie crystal dangling from her earpods. To her surprise, Mafiu agrees to help, and she gently holds Jida's jugs in her palms. However, the girl refuses to take it off. Jida believes that as a member of the Adept's elite disciples, she can never accept Athos's pity. As the two come to terms with their situation, they fail to notice Tomo listening to their conversation from a distance. Later that day, all the students in the academy are busy preparing food for the inter-school catering competition. Mafiu is preparing beetroot juice, and Sasha seems to be the cutting specialist. Meanwhile, Jida does not get involved in this event because she is suffering from her crystal dangling from Unga Bunga situation. Sasha notices this and immediately goes inside the room to check on her. He then unboxes her and drains the soma out of her, while the girl whimpers with pleasure. Just then, Mafiu walks into the room to pick up some vegetables and inadvertently sees Sasha being a creepy dude. She quickly leaves the room, while Jida collapses from extreme pleasure. Sasha notices the vegetable on the floor and immediately realizes that Mafiu is going through some jealous emotional roller coaster. But when he confronts the girl about it, she simply ignores him. Later that evening, Mafiu is walking down the hallway when she runs into Lily's fortune-telling stall. To quench her curiosity, she walks inside the stall, where she gets an in-depth reading. Lily tells her that her love life is going to be satisfactory very soon, but she needs to have some patience. Then, as Mafiu walks towards the kitchen, she notices her crush talking to other girls, which makes her heart skip a beat. After preparing the food, the students serve their seniors, and everyone is seen wearing formal attire. But right before they change their clothes, Sasha almost wore a maid's outfit. When Fumika saw him picking that dress, she got secondhand embarrassment and almost fainted due to the extreme heat. Just then, a mysterious guy approaches Sasha, who turns out to be his boss, Father Yuri. As the two sit down to talk, Jita serves them with some disgusting-looking soup before angrily walking away from their table. Yuri reveals that since their church has now managed to acquire 2 elemental circuits, the Maria of the Sword and the Magdalene of Thunder, the balance of power between the Temple of Athos and the Adepts has been tilted in the Temple's favor. However, in light of this development, the Temple of Athos has some plans to eradicate the remaining Adepts from this world. While Sasha listens carefully, Yuri reveals that if Mafuyu can get married to one of the Adepts' warriors, they can achieve peace for many years. Naturally, Sasha is shocked by this news because Mafuyu's Soma is the most beautiful among all the other girls. Meanwhile, a stupid little acting show is being presented to the crowd, where a little girl is trapped by some man-made vines. Kiria acts as the host, and she tells the crowd that a savior is right around the corner, whose entire life revolves around saving innocent people. Just then, Hana emerges on top of the building in a dumb-looking outfit. She then makes her way towards the stage and introduces herself as Faraday, the electric pulse of justice, called Great Flower. As the crowd erupts in excitement, Hana, on the other hand, has no idea what she is doing with her miserable life. It turns out that before the event started, Kiria discussed her entire stage persona with Hana and a nerdy girl. Just as Hana's performance begins, Kiria notices Mafuyu lost in thought. She tries to ask her what's going on, but Mafuyu tells her it's nothing and walks away. Later, as the red-haired girl walks through the hallways, she notices a beautiful couple coming out of a photo booth. Just then, Sasha appears behind her, causing the girl to fluster with embarrassment. When other girls start populating the area, Sasha pushes her inside the booth to have a private conversation. He tells Mafuyu that he has always had a soft spot for her, and that he wants to drain her soma every day from now on. The girl gets shy hearing this because she always imagined spending her life with him. With this, she reveals her juggernauts, and Sasha gobbles it down like ice cream. However, they don't realize that someone was watching them from a distance. A few moments later, everyone in the academy is gathered around a massive stage for a special announcement from Lily. She reveals that 2 lucky people will get married in front of them, and even decorates the stage with a creepy backdrop. While Hana dreams of getting married to Kiria, the spotlight shines on Mafuyu and Sasha. Before they can process what is going on, they both get ready in wedding dresses, ready to take the vow. Tomo happens to be the priest for this wedding, and the two accept each other as their husband and wives. However, before they can make it official, the mysterious figure from the photo booth emerges out of nowhere and stops the wedding. It turns out that she is the head nun of the Temple of the Athos and has been transferred to this academy as the new sister. She then turns towards the crowd and declares that she is here to make their life a living hell. The next day, Sasha and Fumika are on the roof of their school building, passionately making out. Sasha drains her soma to the fullest, but he suddenly slams her to the ground. Just then, Fumika's knockers deflate like balloons, revealing that her juggernauts are completely fake. Sasha gets furious at her for deceiving him, but suddenly, Fumika is surrounded by massive knockers, jiggling at her from all directions. Sasha once again emerges from the rooftop door and berates the little girl for having fake containers. Fortunately for her, Fumika was having a bad dream, and she wakes up in her bedroom with her normal-sized knockers. Later that day, another huge event is being hosted in their school, where Kajta is once again the host. The first performance is a game show, where Kiria asks the contestants some really dumb trivia questions. While the game show continues, Sasha is in his room reading a book when suddenly he hears a commotion outside. He immediately takes his weapon and goes to investigate, only to find a troubled Mafuyu complaining about how dirty their lawn is. However, he does not waste a second and immediately starts devouring her soma container as a motivation to work. Once again, he is being watched by a mysterious figure from the shadows. Sasha goes around the academy snuggling with all the soma containers he can find, but the shadowy figure continues to follow him everywhere. Just when he is about to take advantage of Mufuyu's tankers, the door to his bedroom barges open. It's the shadowy figure from earlier, who turns out to be none other than the nun from yesterday's event. She pulls Mafuyu away from this creep, claiming that he has gotten addicted to the soma juice. Feeling dejected, Sasha walks out of the room, leaving the red-haired chick wondering if he'll be alright. Now that he won't be able to sniff soma from the academy's girls, Tomo assures him that he will be fine. She even offers her own juicy knocker boots to this creep, and he immediately starts devouring them like a savage. However, the nun notices this and turns him into a human airplane turbine. Fortunately for him, it was all a nasty dream. Even then, he later meets with his boss, Yuri, who tells him to start a new way of living, in which he turns himself into a monk. Every time he thinks of soma, he reminds himself to activate monk mode mentality and keep going. However, this experiment turns him into a literal zombie, and he shuffles around the academy like a dead person. Finally, after hours of continued efforts, Sasha finally beat his soma addiction, which came as a surprise to everyone around him. On the other hand, Kiria is also dealing with the same kind of addiction, where he hosts events and devours soma like a wild animal. But since Hana has a smaller melon size, she talks about being left out with Fumika, who also happens to have peanuts on her torso. Fumika is serious about this, and she has done thorough research on how to grow their knockers without making them extremely fake. She claims that 90% of knockers are filled with human fat, so Hana comes up with a stupid idea. She decides to get a fat implant to make them look like Mufuyu's basketballs. To her disappointment, Fukima explains that while getting fat implants, all the other areas of their bodies also get fat, which is not exactly the look they are trying to achieve. They then discuss whose knockers are fake in the academy, but eventually decide to see the nurse for some expert opinion. Immediately, the girls go to Urara's office to consult her, and she claims that having a boyfriend has a major impact on Unga Bunga's size. As the girls get more and more impatient, she pulls out a handbook on how to grow their biological basketballs. Fukima deduces that if their boyfriends gently massage their airbags twice a day, their knockers will definitely increase in size. Even after hours of contemplation and planning, the girls can't seem to reach a conclusion, so they decide to wait it out. Since they are still in their teenage years, they figure they can simply wait for a few more years for nature to do its thing. Just then, Mufuyu and Tomo enter the room for a normal get-together, but Hana and Fumika immediately get defensive and start yelling at them. Later that evening, Tomo and Mufuyu are studying together when Tomo decides to call it a day and go to bed. She goes to sleep, determined to wake up early the next morning, and sets 2 different alarms. However, when the alarm bell rings, Tomo does not wake up. Multiple alarms go off, and this results in Mufuyu's sleep cycle being completely wrecked. She stumbles through the school's hallway like a dead zombie, and Lily intercepts her midway. They then go to Lily's fortune-telling studio, where she advises Mufuyu on how to have a better sleep cycle even when her friend is a total nutcracker. But just as they reach a conclusion, an alarm bell goes off, signaling Lily that their 20-minute consultation has just ended. On the other hand, the game show hosted by Kiria is still going strong. Her only motivation to do this is to later devour the losing contestants' juggernauts. In this filth-infested game show, there are no censor boards, and Kiria is free to abandon all human rights issues. As the contestants all struggle to breathe and maintain their balance, she tells the audience to keep watching her stupid show. A few months later, outside a prison entrance, an old man is set free after a 15-year sentence for being a Soma addict and a certified creep. His assistant arrives to pick him up, but the old man ignores her and claims that he is no longer attracted to squishy organs. Even when the old man is among his lifelong friends, he does not even take a peek at the knockers on television. Despite working at an adult bookstore, he still manages to control his sausage. One day, the old man visits a park where a woman is feeding Soma to her newborn child. The man simply has a poker face, as if he's playing a hand at a casino. This incident reminds him of dark memories from his 30s, and he spends the entire evening at the park. Later, his assistant arrives to pick him up, flaunting her gigantic airbags. Even after repeated attempts to convert him into a certified creep, the old man stands his ground. He claims that juggernauts are simply fat storage containers, and that it's not beautiful at all. But just when he is about to defeat his inner demon, he loses control. He approaches his assistant and takes off her coverings. In the middle of the park, he devours his young assistant's fat storage containers and expresses his gratitude to the International Breast Research Society. On the other side of town, all the girls from the academy visit a natural hot water spring to relax their tense muscles. A group of girls lines up under a running stream of water and talks about how nice it is to have a hot spring outlet at this resort. Hearing this, the annoying Lily separates herself from the crowd and declares that after conducting a thorough geological survey, she found out that the school grounds have a promising hot spring source. Meanwhile, a handful of other girls are having the most difficult time of their lives. The scary nun is acting like a military commander, forcing them to run through the beach. She even asks them to do a bunch of other physical exercises, causing the girls to collapse under the weight of their own jellyfish. It seems like the storyline took a nosedive, and the anime is focusing more on side quests. After an intense workout session, the girls are now being guided to center themselves via a stupid meditative practice. But those who fail to concentrate are immediately spanked with a wooden stick. On the other side of town, the old man is hosting an event where hundreds of guests have attended. It's an annual party celebrating the reboot of the International Breast Research Society. The old man yells out that he was once an absolute addict for juicy Soma, but after careful consideration and help from his friends, he managed to beat the addiction. So, to upgrade his organization, the old man changes his company's name to the Cosmic Breast Research Society. All the girls in the crowd lose their minds as there is no way they can compete with interdimensional juggernauts. With this, a gaggle of girls with no clothes is displayed, and they all chant a creepy slogan about how girls should always be topless. Back in the academy, the scary nun asks a bunch of trivia questions to Sasha, and he confidently rattles off the answers. Kiria is incredibly dumb, so she cannot answer the question, but surprisingly, this giant, monstrous jelly donut, Mufuyu, answers an extremely difficult question about geopolitics. Everyone is impressed by this, and even the scary nun compliments her. Meanwhile, Ayami is strolling around the beach with her friend, where they decide to get on a luxury cruise ship. Ayami fantasizes about being a submissive idiot for Kiria, but her current partner is a dumb girl with no energy around her Soma chambers. Just then, a couple of security guards intercept them and try to hold them hostage. Thinking like a criminal, Ayami jumps off the ship to save her dignity. But her innocent friend gets trapped in this weird billionaire ship. She is then taken to the old man from earlier, who wants to vacuum out every last drop of soma from this girl. He immediately grabs her vessel and fantasizes about the satisfaction he's going to derive from this innocent girl. Simultaneously, Ayami barges into the trivia room and reveals details about the sinister cruise ship that had abducted her friend. The girls cannot believe such an organization even exists, but the scary nun announces some sensitive information. She reveals that the leader of Cosmic Breast Research Organization is a Coco felon, who is trying to rebuild his creepy empire using unsuspecting girls and their soma juice, determined to save the little girl's life. All the girls get dressed and leave for battle. Back at the cruise ship, the old man is about to make the girl sweat like a pig, so he can extract pure soma from her body. But before he can proceed, the girls attack the ship like Power Rangers, causing the old man to lose his marbles. Curia is especially furious because she loves flat girls and Ayami was almost abducted. However, the old man does not seem to care, as he gets ready to fight them all with a bunch of boy band members. It looks like a fight between a bunch of high schoolers is about to go down, and Sasha immediately refills his soma capacity. Seeing all his boy band warriors defeated in a matter of seconds, the old man tries to run away. However, he is stopped by the scary nun, who flashes him with her wrinkled airbags. After the short battle, Curia takes Ayame and the innocent girl to her bedroom, and they start engaging in blissful and pleasurable experiences. However, the sound of pleasure is a little too loud, causing the next-door neighbors to take a peek. The next day, Sasha wakes up to the sight of Mufuyu trying to gobble his flagpole like an OnlyFans model. But just as he is about to plant his flag, he wakes up from his dream. It turns out that Edgar is trying to get frisky with him, and Sasha also does not back down. Unfortunately for him, Edgar turns out to be a boy who is head over heels in love with him. Later, Edgar takes him out near a lake, the exact place where a guy named Tanner is buried. It turns out that Tanner was Edgar's first master and his best friend. However, he took advantage of Edgar and stole all of his soma after treating him like a vessel for 5 years. As they chat, Edgar also reveals that he wields the power of No-Av God, the most powerful of high ancient circuits. Ever since Sasha eliminated Tanner, Edgar was set free from his chains. Hearing this story, Sasha tells the boy that he will be there for him no matter what. This makes Edgar crumble, as he reveals his true insecurity. He simply wants to live a normal life and be around his friends. Sasha lends a hand to him, the first good thing this beta male has done in this anime. However, Jida is witnessing this entire scene unfold from a distance. On the other hand, Father Yuri is having an altercation on a whole other level. He confronts Father Metatron about the rules of the Temple of Athos, but Metatron seems to be in a mood to hijack the entire church. Yuri smiles at him, saying it's foolish to believe in the same God but create factions just for political gain, as the priests have a holy standoff. Yuri is ready to go against the entire faction of the church that believes in utilizing religion for personal gain. That night, when Sasha is sleeping in his bedroom, Mufuyu walks in like an FBI agent. Somehow, she has been brainwashed into eliminating Sasha in his sleep. It turns out that the evil faction of the church is controlling people to unalive all of their rivals. Mufuyu tries to rope him into a fight, but Sasha is hesitant to attack his milk container. Before he can decide what to do, the red-haired girl slams him to the ground like a wrestler. As time goes on, Mufuyu's attacks get deadlier, and Sasha can't seem to figure out a way to stop her without harming her. Just then, he approaches Mufuyu and tries to drain some soma out of her airbags. This causes the red-haired girl to re-evaluate her choices, and she realizes that she's being controlled. Mufuyu fights with her conscience over whether to eliminate Sasha or not, but she ultimately decides to end his life. As her face and body transform into a literal demon, Mufuyu lands a punch so hard that it almost collapses the entire house. Just as she lands the strike, Hana arrives at the scene and explains how rival factions in the Temple of the Athos are making their move. With this, a new battle begins, and he collects energy by draining Hana's jugs. Finally, Sasha is battle ready, and he promises to free Mufuyu from religious brainwashing. To make matters worse, Mufuyu activates her Maria of the Blade Elemental Circuit, but Sasha is fully amped up. He strikes at Mufuyu with a force so big that her Hail Mary attempt ended up looking like a Fail Mary. Without further ado, he rips open Mufuyu's cover and tries to suck out all the impurities from her soul. A few hours later, all the girls gather around in the academy premises. As soon as the unconscious Mufuyu opens her eyes, she finds all her friends waiting for her. When Sasha asks her what happened, the red-haired girl does not even remember. As she finally stands up on her feet, he promises the girl that he will always keep her safe, no matter who the enemy is. On the other hand, Yuri has already defeated over 100 church soldiers, who were also brainwashed into fighting for their sinister cause. However, Father Crawford and Father Metatron activate a new battalion of soldiers, and they charge right at Yuri. Just as he is about to take off his eye patch to unlock his abilities, a hottie named Lizzie makes an entrance. Crawford and his team have no intention to back down, so they launch a barrage of attacks. But Lizzie manages to deflect and attack their lair using a technique called Excalibur. In an alleyway far from the battleground, Curia and Hana meet with two guys from the Adept the criminal organization that was ruled by Yukinobu a few months ago. One of the guys immediately traps Kuria in his trap, leaving Hana by herself. As a last line of defense, the scary nun asks Sasha and his crew of dumb idiots to save the Church of Athos. With this, they walk towards the battleground, ready to pillage whatever evil comes their way. Now that the battle between good and evil has started, can Sasha still save his girlfriend? Comment Crystal if you're hyped to see what happens next in Season 3. Thanks for watching, as always.